Alright, King Killers, we're covering chapters 7 through 8 from the Way of Kings in this one. We discuss Shallan attempting for a second time to become Jasnah's ward, only to fail again, but undaunted, she comes back for a third bite at the apple and convinces Jasnah to give her a chance. Then I also come up with a killer nickname for Kabsal, and we talk about a super steamy scene that we're looking forward to seeing playing out on TV, and I bring receipts to back up my claim that Kharbranth runs on Flip Cup and that sweet, sweet crack cocaine. So sit back and enjoy. All right, welcome back to the King Killer podcast. Got with me Tim, the Danny DeVito of podcast hosts. What's going on?
I like Danny DeVito. He's great. The Frank Reynolds of
Now, unlike Gaz, it's not so much that you guys, your personalities are alike. You like Danny DeVito's great. It's more physical appearance with Danny DeVito. You're more like the Gaz if Danny DeVito had Gaz's personality.
You know, It's Always Sunny when Danny DeVito shaved his eyebrows off.
Are you talking about when he shaved his whole body? Like, because he wanted to be clean?
Is it okay? That's the look I'm going for. That's what I'm going for.
Yeah, that's a classic one. That was they all think they are getting the flu, and so they like quarantine themselves in the bathroom. And Danny DeVito's like shaving all the hair off his body and bathing himself in hand sanitizer. And then they realize that they actually are not getting the flu, is they're suffering withdrawal from not drinking. It's fucking amazing. Such a great episode.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking the Frank POV episode, where you see everything from his perspective, and he never knows what's going on, so he just attacks people verbally.
Yeah.
Say something. D's a bird. And he's like, yeah, it's great. Everybody just applauds him. Yeah, that's the life I'm trying to lead.
Yeah, it's always good. Like, you should always yell out, someone's a bird.
Yeah, just go for psychological chaos at all times. Never be like focused or engaged, and then when it's called upon you, just lash out at others.
My favorite episode is the one where Frank runs into Dennis's car while Dennis is eating cereal in his car. And then Dee is like trying to use it because they have destroyed her car in so many episodes, and she's trying to use this as a way to like get shit back for all the cars that they've destroyed of her. She's like, if we can make him responsible for Dennis's car, then that will show that they should have paid for my car. And they it ends up resulting in them blaming her for the damage to Dennis's car. Even though she played no part in it.
Nice. Is this podcast about It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
Yes,
I'm
mostly.
Confused.
Yeah, mostly. Okay. Mostly. So where are you at as far as these books that, we should spend less time talking about and more time talking about It's Sunny?
I think around like chapter 38, the last sort of things I remembered was it got pretty great with Jasnah using the Soulcaster to fuck some people up. And Shallan finally did what she was working up the courage to do all along, and that is switch them out. So she finally did that, and then what else happened? Another Cal go back chapter, but it was when he decided he wanted to be called Kaladin from then forth and wanted to be a surgeon because he wanted to be more like
the big part you would have read with Kaladin would have been him being strung up.
So
after the bridge debacle, the side carry debacle, so they strung him up in a high storm.
So that happened. Then what I said about Shallan and Jasnah. Then the go back to when Cal was a kid and gradually getting older and realizing he wanted to be more like a Light Eyes and be a surgeon. And then it ended with Cal basically surviving the high storm, and then his guys coming in from Bridge 4 and sort of like paying homage. And then Taft, I think it is, brings them stones. What do you
Spheres.
call them? Spheres, yeah. Brings him spheres, which help start to heal his wounds, but he needs to do it gradually so they don't think something's up. There's something, it clearly reveals there's something more to Taft than met the eye initially. But yeah, things are building. It's good shit.
So what was your, when you read that, like, it's obviously, if you've read the books, you know exactly what's going on there, but what was like your thought when you read that? Like, what were you thinking was going on?
I mean, it seemed like Kaladin's being used to serve a purpose. Taft's there to help make sure that he lives, is what it seemed like to me. So maybe like Taft is, I don't know, one of these immortals or something. That's kind of what it felt like to me, but I don't know. I mean, I'm still on the journey, bruh.
Yeah.
I'm
not going to tell you. I was just curious, like what you thought was going on. But yeah, so once we get to where they explain kind of what's going on, then we'll talk more on that. But yeah, so we're on chapter 7, Anything Reasonable. In this chapter, Shallan takes a second bite at the apple to try to convince Jasnah to let her become a ward. So she goes up to Jasnah's reading den, and she draws some pictures for her, and then she also talks to an ardent, and then at the end of the chapter, Jasnah shows up.
The beginning reminded me of part of what I just saw. What I just mentioned about Jasnah later, like someone burning alive. You know, it talks about a skin as a flame.
Yeah, they are a flame. They burn. They bring the darkness when they come, and so all you can see is that their skin is a flame. Burn, burn, burn. Collected on Palahishif, 1172, 21 seconds pre-death. Subject was a baker's apprentice.
Yeah, so it reminded me of that because I had just read it, but also maybe they kept the baked goods in the oven too long, and now everybody's burning up in the bakery. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, he's just got a really, really dark dad. Or not apprentice. He's an apprentice. So like his boss is very, very dark. Does some sick shit at that bakery.
So maybe they're cooking people? Is that
yes,
what they're doing?
They're clearly cooking people.
Soylent Green is people?
He says their skin is aflame. Burn, burn, burn. He's cheering for them to burn.
Oh, so this is, you know what? He stands outside of the front of the bakery, and that's just how he announced their wares. Their skin is aflame. Burn, burn, burn. And then everybody comes like, oh, yeah, it smells so good. Yeah. And they all roll in like, yeah, let me get some of that meat.
Smells like fucking pulled pork in here.
Pulled pork.
Yeah, so that's clearly there's some dark shit going on in that bakery. That's the logical explanation for, that little saying. I think I have a guess on what it would actually be, but it would be something that it's not super important, but I think it has to do with the origins of Roshar. I can't go into it because it's not something you're going to be. You haven't got far enough in the books for me to go into it, but I don't think it's a massive thing. But that's more than likely what it has to do with is the origins of people on Roshar, as I think that's what he is seeing right there. Because there's a line in a later chapter that kind of mirrors it. So, when we come to that line, I'll bring it back up. But yeah, so I do think that there is something to it that you can find out, but you're not far enough yet. But
Well, it seems like that's the case with all these, right? Or at least that's supposed to be. That's sort of the intention.
yeah, a lot of them you don't find out until you get further in the. Well, pretty much all of them you don't find out until you get further in the books. You can't put it together. But yeah, I mean, some of these things, they seem to be events from the past. Some of them seem to be events that will happen in the future, and so there's there's vision. There's definitely visions to them. Some of them seem like they're nothing.
Well, yeah, they're all
some
very
vision element to them.
Yeah, well, I was going to say they all are, even in that sense, they are very visual to begin with. But so, I mean, I'm just assuming the year we're in is 2021. So this is 1172. So this is that far before.
Yeah, because it's
today.
Yeah, this is
November the 10th, 2021, right now, and what we're reading.
Yeah,
and what I'm reading.
Yeah, this is about 1,000 years ago. You nailed it. But yeah, so then we got another mention at the beginning of the chapter. We get another mention of the Parshmen. She says, Parshmen could speak, but they rarely did so. Many seemed mute. As a child, she'd found the patterns of their marbled skin beautiful. They had been there. That had been before her father forbade her to spend any time with the Parshmen. And so it starts out, we get that they don't speak, that they seem largely mute. They can speak, but they largely don't. But then also gives a little insight into her family upbringing, that like spending any time with the Parshmen, she was forbidden from doing that, spending any time with these lowly Parshmen. So her dad is obviously a very controlling person, these two chapters help demonstrate that her dad seems to be kind of a douche.
He seems to be controlling as well as sort of elitist.
Yeah.
Right? Like whenever she's drawing anything common, like he frowns upon it.
Yes.
Like it makes him angry when she saw him, or when he saw her like drawing Parshmen or just
dark
other
eyes.
common. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, other like more common things. Which, yeah, it's kind of interesting. The guy does sound kind of like kind of a douche.
Yeah, he doesn't. He's not the coolest dad. That's for sure. She does not paint him as the coolest dad. Now we're in her head, so she could just be lying to us for some reason.
Well, yeah, I guess it is her perspective, but we do get also that the house was prospering out of obscurity primarily because of his skill in politics. He had been hated by many because of his ruthlessness, but it seemed like also his soulcaster was a huge source of that wealth. Which again, that we talked about this last time, but it's funny how if like the way he uses the soulcaster, he does it quietly and secretively, because you're only supposed to use it for certain things, which again to me is still quite ridiculous because of the utility. But like, and here where they're talking about it is he's discovering quarries and then exhausting quarries of their, what you can get out of it, and then using the soulcaster to create new deposits, but carefully, at a careful rate. Not enough to be suspicious, just enough to give him the money he needed to further his political goals. It's like, I mean, if this thing brings so much affluence, why don't we just use these things, for what they can be used for?
In that scenario, I mean, he's basically printing money, and so he's counterfeiting money, and so that would be something people in that environment would probably frown upon.
But I mean, their money are spheres. These are quarries, so this is something they're building buildings out of, right?
Well, I mean, it's like mines and type of shit.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah. So, like,
I know that it's a scarce resource and all.
The spheres are diamonds and quartz and all that kind of shit. So,
I'm saying that because
their money is.
No, I understand. You're saying he's printing money. I'm not saying he's. What I'm saying is he's mining in the quarries. So if what I pictured was he's pulling out stones that they're using to build. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know what he's mining. You would think if you're soul casting, you just mine things that are fucking money. Like, why would you mine stone if you could mine gold if it's just a flick of a wrist?
I don't know, but I mean, it seems like it's forbidden.
Well, yeah, but
For him
so
to do it.
like there has to be a reason, like it would be frowned upon, because otherwise, like they do the stone and that kind of shit, in
Although,
front of everybody else. It's not like hidden. Like it would have to be something that would be, counterfeiting would be frowned upon, because then you're fucking up the economy. But
well,
the like stone and that kind of shit, that's just useful.
I guess what I'm also reading here is her father using his forbidden soulcaster. So I guess it's forbidden to him. Like he's not supposed to be using it. Like he's not worthy of it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like it's like Jasnah using it is frowned upon because she's not an ardent, and so it's a religious fucking thing. So yeah, I don't know exactly what the reason is forbidden, or exactly. I don't remember if it's mentioned what he's using it for, but you would think, like, if you're gonna use it, you wouldn't just be using it just for fucking stone. Like, what a fucking stupid
I just like use it to shave,
Yeah,
use
like
it to like cut like Zorro in the walls. Put a Z. Mark
shave.
Laban.
I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm talking about Soulcaster.
Yeah,
you know what the Soulcasters are? It like changes one object. It's not the swords. It's not Shardblade.
Oh yeah.
Soulcasters are the things that will like you can turn shit into
that's right. Yeah,
gold.
Yeah.
So if that might help,
I mixed them up.
Like explain exactly what I'm talking about. Why? Because like if you were thinking stone, like he's just cutting stone out, that's not what he's doing. He's changing.
Yeah, I got
like one object into another. So that's why I think he's changing, regular rocks into valuable things like diamonds and that kind of shit.
That makes it clear. I thought, I guess I mix those two up every now and then. Yeah, this world's still new to me, bro.
Yeah.
Got the Fabriol and all this shit.
Yeah, like he would be allowed, it wouldn't be abnormal for him to have a shard blade or anything. But the soulcasters, changing an object from one thing to another. The soulcasters are like what Jasnah wears on her arm. Like her it's hand. Like, got the different emerald type things, the sphere type things on her wrist. And so it's just a little thing she wears that she, they show her use to turn that rock into smoke. Or those guys into, she sets, someone ablaze or, makes them disappear, whatever she does. I can't remember.
So Szeth had a shard blade?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, completely different things. The shard blades are swords.
But, I mean, Szeth was able to do some pretty wild shit. Not just cutting things.
He was using magic. He wasn't. Okay, that wasn't soul casting. Yeah, he was like he was doing some kind of magical thing with the spheres. Like what he would do is he would suck in the stormlight. It was like he was
internalizing it. Yeah.
Well, he would suck in the stormlight, and then once he sucked in the stormlight, he could use the stormlight to do different things for him.
Yeah. And it was like seeping out of him, and then it would seep out quicker when he's like doing certain types of things.
Yeah. So that's different. There's basically, I mean, the shard blades are just the swords, or the shard plate is the armor. That's just swords and armor. It's more powerful swords and armor, much more effective and deadly and powerful. But
they seem to have magical powers within them. But
but they don't like, it won't like change something into something else or anything like that. Or like let you change gravity or anything like that. It's still just you swing it. It's still just a sword or plate. It's basically what it is. It's just an advanced type. But then the soulcaster is just a little device you wear in your wrist that can change an object from one thing to another, and
create shelter and create food and
what Szeth could do is called like surge binding. That is, he sucks in stormlight from the spheres. All these spheres, like they're glowing, they produce light. And so he sucks in that stormlight, and then he can use that stormlight to change the gravitational pull, to turn, the ground, the ceiling into the ground, and he could do it like as like a super glue type of thing where he'd put his hand on something and it would, bind the things together so you couldn't like open that door. Or he also used it to pull things towards it. So like when they threw the spears at him, he had his hand up against the wall and the spears changed course and veered into where he had pushed the Stormlight into the wall. So that's surge binding, and that is different. They're both like using a soul caster and surge binding and shard blades. They're all part of the magic of the world, but they're different. They're not the same types of things.
Gotcha. It does seem like something that they carry along with one another, and even in a way are in what's her name? The fairy?
Tinkerbell.
Yeah. No, but I mean something that's common to those things, and what Syl is, the
Spren.
Spren. They all seem to exist because of the energy fields, so to speak, in this world. It's like there's a force, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like overall, and they all seem to be possible because of this overarching motif in this world of how like energy works.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, no, very very much. I mean, that's largely what the magic is there is kind of a central source, but then there's different variations of the magic. But there is like a kind of central source. I can't say what it is because it'd be a spoiler, but there's basically like a central source, and then there's different types of magic. There's a lot of different types of magic in the world, different things that people can do, and you learn about them slowly but surely. But yeah, so Seth is sucking in Stormlight and then using the Stormlight, and he's using it to heal himself, to change gravity, to all the different things that he does during that fight with Gavilar. And Jasnah is doing something different, and then the shard blades and shard blade are something different too.
Yeah, and then so the way her father, all right, did her father's soulcaster? I felt like, was he killed? So you said Gavilar.
I guess it did say that they were discovering new marble deposits.
Yeah.
So they were making marble.
Well, that's what I was saying. That's why I was saying quarries. And it seemed like he was using it to find or create new deposits, which is why I was picturing it, because I'd already pictured the use of the not the soulcaster, but the shard blade to cut. Yeah, I did get confused between the two because they are talking about a soulcaster, not a shard blade.
Yeah, no, he was just turning shit into marble then. So yeah, they were finding marble. I guess if their lands initially had marble deposits to begin with on the lands, then that's why they would use that. But yeah, so yeah, they have making marble out of nothing, at changing one thing into marble, whether it's just regular rock or ground or whatever, or piss or shit. They're changing that into marble and then selling that.
So, did Szeth kill her father? Or am I confused about that too?
Oh, you haven't got to a part where it says who killed her father?
Well, I thought there was a part in these chapters where they mentioned the assassin in all white.
Yeah, she's talking about the assassin in all white who killed Gavilar, which is Jasnah's father.
Yeah, okay. I just got confused between the two of them.
Step up helpful, game, dude.
We're getting somewhere.
No, I know. But yeah, so
we do get the backstory here of her father's debts and promises, and basically her purpose, right? What she's basically out here to do.
Yeah, and how the basic premise is like her dad was doing political machinations, trying to move up in the world and trying to become more powerful. And he came into possession of a soul caster, and it's not mentioned how yet, but he's moving up. He's doing all these things, but he's making enemies. He's isolating the family. Everybody hates them, but he's got enough political power and money coming in because of the soulcaster to keep the wolves at bay. But then once he dies and the soulcaster breaks, now they're fucked because they've already cut themselves off. They don't have any allies to turn to. They don't have, without the soulcaster, the money's gone. So now they got all the debts that he's built up to try to further his way up the political ladder. All the debts that he's built up trying to gain power are now coming back to bite them in the ass.
Yeah, it's pretty funny too, or it's interesting how people don't know. Like eventually, so that's the ticking time clock that we have with Shallan's purpose is the more time that passes, the more people are going to realize that her father's dead and that the debts need to be paid. And, like all those promises that were made, it all comes to a head, and then they can take advantage of the fact that he's not there and they don't have a soulcaster anymore. So, but yeah, it's interesting, that function.
Well, I think what's one of the more interesting aspects of it, beyond just, obviously her dad was doing shit that put him in a precarious position when he died, is that she goes, nobody knew where he'd gotten the fabrial, which she now carried in her safe pouch. It was unusable, damaged on the same disastrous evening that her father had died. Don't think about that, she told herself forcefully. And we'll come across some other lines too, where she keeps pushing down memories of like something fucked up happened. It's not just
that she was probably present for.
Yeah. I mean, it's something traumatic to her happen where she doesn't want to think about it. She keeps pushing down the memory. She gives us like a little clue of, what happened, but then buries it back down. And so the fabrial doesn't work, or the debts and promises that her dad had made were outrageous. And, her family had some time, perhaps as long as a year, before missed payments became egregious and before her father's absence became obvious. So their plan is they send her to find Jasnah, and she spends half a year looking for Jasnah. And so now she's here, and she, not becoming Jasnah's ward is not an option because she needs to steal Jasnah's soulcaster. And so she goes, what she planned to do was risky. She had to escape before implicating herself in the theft. That step would come later. For now, Shallan had to convince Jasnah to accept her as ward. All other results were unacceptable. And so not only does she have to steal it from her, she has to steal it and not get caught, not be a suspect. Because even if they suspect her of doing it, then that fucks up everything too.
Yeah, I remember that being like a pretty big revelation when you first read it. You're like, oh shit, so that's what she... Like, I remember you're kind of like, it's a little bit of a mystery what exactly she's trying to do. You can tell she's up to something else, and then it gets clearly stated right there that she's there to replace it. She's a thief. She's there to replace this. They're great characters, and the way it plays off of each other's is great because Jasnah's careful. Shallan's basically in turmoil about the whole thing to a degree, but she has her purpose, and she doesn't really hesitate from her purpose. She just questions along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, so Shallan, she goes to the library, the Palanaeum, or whatever it's called, and which is, like he said, is basically the Library of Alexander, kind of semi-inspired it. And she comes up and she says there's a door. She said the beauty of the door's exterior was carved in an intricate geometric pattern with circles and lines and glyphs. It was some kind of chart, half on each drawer. There was no time to study the details, unfortunately, and she passed by them. So, like, this place is extremely old. They say this room is called the Veil. The servant explained softly, that which comes before the Palanaeum itself.
Both were here when the city was founded. Some think the chambers might have been cut by the Dawn Singers themselves. Find out who the Dawn Singers are much later. Basically, the Warren Church's belief on the Dawn Singers is that they were like Spren that were there basically to help humans, and so they were just kind of there to help the humans. And so this would be pre-heralds, like Jezrin and Taln and all those guys that we meet, Kalak and the guys we meet in the very beginning, the heralds. This Dawn Singers would be pre them. Yeah. And so that's how far back this place goes. And so the glyphs and everything, because what's interesting about that is we talked about like where the fuck did this cheat come for glyphs that they can use those. So the way they talk about the Dawn Singers saying like, they're basically Spren that were there to help humans. I think since they think they created the glyphs and that they're there to help humans, I think, it's likely that they, for some reason, they developed a system where reading and writing was feminine and men don't do that. But I think the glyphs, the reason they see them as different is they're like, well, that came from the Dawn Singers and their Spren and, their creations were to help humanity. So that's different. Because we were talking, you remember if we talked about it in one of the episodes, we were like, well, that's what you talking about? That's fucking reading.
It comes up.
You're just reading hieroglyphics.
Also, on those glyphs, it does seem like that could be more of like a global language. Almost like, we all have different languages in the world and on Earth, but we have mathematics.
Correct. Yeah.
Not to say that this is mathematics, but it's more of like a visual symbols.
Yes.
That still serve a purpose now, even from the dawn of man to now, which is interesting because there's certain ways where we have that in mathematics. There's geometric shapes that sort of serve a purpose, but we don't have that per se, today where it functions, at least not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Well, it would be a universal language because the glyphs came before the written language.
Yeah. Well, and there's also a part, it might be in these chapters, it might be in something else I read recently, but the shops, some of the shops they'll have, actually it is in the next chapter where they go to the shop that has books. There's also a glyph that means like a fucking book for people that literally can't read. There's certain pages or whatever that, guys, servants, that if they can't read, they still need to know where they're.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, in that it's even like they change. Yeah. They made the design of the glyph resemble a book but like the glyph says something specific, but the way they drew that glyph, they made it kind of resemble a book too. So kind of doubled their chances of somebody who can't read or write being able to figure it out. But anyways, the door that she's at, it has like these glyphs and everything on it, so it obviously dates back because they say it dates all the way back to the Dawn Singers. But I'm curious what that is, the intricate geometric pattern and circles and lines and glyphs. I think it has to do with a major part of Book 2. One of the kind of the central plots is they're looking for a specific place. And I think if they found that door now, they would be able to gather in. It would have helped them gather information for Book 2, but I don't think it comes up again. So I don't think it's going to have any part of the plot other than when you go back through it a second time and you see that, it makes you think of, the main part of Book 2.
Is Book 2 like way in the future from this?
No. It takes place directly after Book 1.
Did you notice, or did you already know? Because they make a point here that Shallan has deep red colored hair.
Yeah. I've mentioned she's a ginger. Yeah, they like to do that in fantasy books, man. Wheel of Time, fucking King Killer. This they love trying to shove gingers down our throat.
I mean, it stands out. Stands out. I guess I forgot she was ginger to begin with. I don't picture her. I don't know how I picture her, really, frankly. But
pale.
Well, yeah,
pasty,
for sure.
Pale, pasty skin ginger.
Pasty does not sound complimentary.
But so she goes up into the sitting room, like basically Jasnah's sitting room, and I like too that they're like, I'll need your chit of admittance brightness. She's like, how much does one cost? Shallan asked hesitantly. 1,000 sapphire bromes. So much? The king's many hospitals require much upkeep, the man said apologetically. The only thing Kharbranth has to sell are fish, bells, and information. The first two are hardly unique to us, but the third, well, the Palanaeum has the finest collection of tomes and scrolls on Roshar, more even than the Holy Enclave in Valath. At last count, there were over 700,000 separate texts in our archive. And Valath is a place in Yakaved. It's near where Shallan lives. But a couple things on that. I like the fact that, the king has these hospitals and he's not charging people to use them. And so the way that they're getting around that and, they're not just eating that cost is they're jacking up the cost of access to their libraries. So you're still paying for it, which to me is like, you're just charging for it through an indirect method, but you're still charging for the hospital. But yeah, so they got this, they're charging for the hospitals, and the way they're doing it is they're jacking up the price of the library. And the libraries are, one of the few places on the world with a shit ton of books. And so it's, people are willing to pay that cost to get in there.
Yeah, it seems like the place of history and academia.
Yeah.
If it's true, it's the largest archives around. There's a big draw for people who are looking to study.
Yeah, and another aspect of it is that the Kharbranth has to sell our fish, bells, and information. That is nonsense because that's discounting the flip cup and the crack. Like, this guy's an idiot, and he's discounting their main source of income in that city. He's just completely glossing over that fact.
It still seems weird. Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm not seeing it so clearly, but in terms of like having a soulcaster and seeing how much utility you can get out of that, they're still trading. There's all these, well, I guess they're talking about the city itself, because within the city, there's libraries, there's books, there's all these different places you can buy, but it's a city in itself. So it's a bunch of people just trading their wares. Doesn't necessarily add economy into the city itself, I guess, except, if you're paying for shelter.
Well, it would. It's just, they're limited, and the soulcasters, there's a cost. I mean, there's a very high cost. There's a cost on the user, and there's a cost on the gemstones that they use.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So it's not just free money. And so otherwise, yeah, I mean, like, you basically without the cost, then you basically got like the Star Trek, replicator machine where you can
Did you mean Star Trek?
That's what I said.
You said Star Trek.
Oh, shut up, dude. Such a nerd. Fucking dork.
I mean, you said Star Trek. I thought you meant Star Trek. I was just making sure, I wanted to clarify that this wasn't like a racing thing.
No, it's not. But yeah, so there's a cost. I mean, it's not free money. But yeah, so she gets up into Jasnah's spa. She gets all up in there, and then
her reading alcove. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. And then she's thinking about, like, she's got to change Jasnah's mind. She's like, considering it made her sick. She hated confrontation. During her youth, she'd felt like a piece of delicate crystalware locked in a cabinet to be displayed but never touched. the only daughter, the last memory of Bright Lord Devar's beloved wife. It felt so odd to her that she'd been one to take charge after the incident, after memories attacked her. Non-blot bruised, his coat torn, a long silvery sword in her hand, sharp enough to cut stones as if they were water. No, Shallan thought, her back to the stone wall, clutching her satchel. No, don't think of the past.
So that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, so and she thinks of it again later, I think. I think it comes up again later. But yeah, I mean, like, clearly something fucked up happened. She's talking about non-blot bruised, his coat torn, a long silvery sword in her hand, sharp enough to cut stones as if they were water. Which obviously, that's a fucking shard blade. Yeah.
In her hand?
Yes.
Huh. I wonder if she killed her father, like accidentally, or maybe on purpose. Maybe accidentally on purpose.
Yeah, it's definitely something fucked up happened. I mean, she can't even think about it. Anytime she starts to think about it, you know, that, like, you just get there, just the train of thought going down. Like, she's thinking about, like, thinking about she doesn't like confrontation, you know, how her dad treated her, then from how her dad treated her, like, to her mom, and then from her mom to the incident, and then, you know, so it's just a random train of thought going on, and she panics as soon as she starts thinking about it and just shoves those memories down.
Yeah, there seems to be a ton of regret, a lot of emotion packed into it for sure.
But
I did want to ask, we talked, like, when they were talking about the archives here, whatever you want to call it, the veil, what have you. Did they say this is in Kharbranth? Yeah, okay. So, if I remember right, was that where Kaladin was supposed to go to study? Wasn't his whole
yes.
thing was he was getting...
Yeah. Correct. Kharbranth is where the hospital is, and so that would be the prime spot for... Obviously, this would be a prime spot for education. You got a massive library, you got a massive advanced hospital. So,
dude, no wonder there's Flip Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a big party town, yeah. And it's
all kinds
built
of sororities, and
it's built into a massive piece of crack.
I was going to say, we get it here, but we get it throughout that Shallan does have this natural hunger or thirst for knowledge. Like, she wishes to stay here and, like, think of... I think she actually describes it as she felt like she was starving, just yet leaving a warm fruit pie uneaten. But she relates that to, like, the fact that there's all this information here, all these shelves, and just seeing all this, all these books. Because, I mean, when she thinks about the amount of books she had access to growing up, she knew all of them, like, by heart. And there weren't that many, right? I don't remember, like, the exact amount, but it sounds like
they had something kind of less than 100. She says like 87 books.
87.
Or something.
There it is. Yeah. And she'd read them all several times over. So the idea of, like, it sounds like there's not a lot of access to information. It's not common, right?
No, clearly not for poor people, at least. I mean, you know,
and she's not poor, really, right? I mean,
yeah. I mean, they're not like extraordinarily wealthy, but yeah, they're definitely not poor. I mean, they are. You know, she's a light-eyed, and she's wealthy enough and enough prestige to be able to go and petition Jasnah to be a ward, where it's not a absurd idea, where Jasnah wouldn't just immediately be like, "Get the fuck out of here! Who are you?" So she's in a powerful enough position where that's a possibility. Her dad's was in a powerful enough position where he was able to kind of work his way up in political circles and stuff. So yeah, they're not completely destitute. But if you think, like, they had 87 books and they're not on the lowest rung, people on the lowest rung are going to have very little access. And we're talking about an agrarian society where most of these people are working every day just to feed themselves or their, community. And so you're not going to have a lot of people reading and shit. That's why we were talking about, because of the way the society is structured and the fact that, men don't read, and the education would largely have to be just passed down from generation. It would have to be largely an apprenticeship society where like your dad's a farmer, so you become a farmer, or your dad's a doctor, so you become a doctor. And so, but like moving through society, becoming educated, you wouldn't expect like the men to be as educated as they are, as well as they are. Like Dalinar, it doesn't sound like this guy's been plowing through fucking books before he started diving into the Way of Kings. Like, people react to him reading as it just seems super preposterous. And so
it seems like
he doesn't come off as a dumbass, though.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of these guys are just like trained soldiers. That's their purpose. That's what they do, whatever it is.
But they're way more educated than that. I mean, they just from the dialogue, you listen to their dialogue and their vocabulary. Their vocabulary is much higher than you would expect without them reading books.
Well, you even get that from Yalb.
Yeah.
Right? Just the way he acts. So there's seems to be a lot of street savviness, I guess. Yeah, it's an interesting society, I guess, in itself. And it also plays off interesting because we have access to these conversations between Jasnah and Shallan.
What I would expect is, like in King Killer Chronicles, when Kvothe runs across that bumpkin dude that's kind of outside society, the pig farmer.
Pegs.
Yeah. Like, that's how I would expect, like, just like a much lower vocabulary, not necessarily like they're stupid. They don't have, it would be, if your family's farmers and shit, you're going to have a very specialized knowledge. It's not like you're just an idiot because you can't read. You would have the knowledge that's passed down to you. You'd be able to retain that and use that and become, proficient in things even without reading. But your vocabulary would suffer. And so, like, those specific things would suffer if you're not reading. And you're not going to be knowledgeable about a wide variety of things because you're not reading books.
You just don't have access. Yeah.
So, like, you would expect low vocabulary. You would expect very specialized knowledge, where if you're knowledgeable in, one or two things because you were an apprentice or your dad, your mom did it, so that you have that kind of knowledge, but you wouldn't expect this wide ranging knowledge. And they're much smarter than you would expect given this type of society that they're living in.
Yeah, I wonder why that is, or if that's just a strange twist of his world. I don't know.
Seems to be just part of his world. I mean, you're limited when you're a writer. You can't write a story where, everybody's like some bumpkin that barely speaks coherent. Like, you would just be writing these weird sentences that as a reader, you would be like, okay, this is ridiculous. So if you want to include these kind of elements in there, a large part of it, you have to kind of gloss over those kind of things and just make it that they are, and there's not an explanation for why.
Well, I mean, that's even true to the language, because every now and then I'll come across a word where I'm like, would they use that word in this world? But it's like, well, whatever. Like, it's communicating to us. So we're reading this world, and so what? That's just the word, and it just happens to be a word we use as well. But it's a book. So you're accepting that, even though it's kind of like when you see certain things in movies where it's like, I don't know about that, but you accept it. If everything else is working so far, you just kind of accept it and go along with it, Unless,
I mean,
that's
too
an interesting aspect,
much realism. Too much realism, can ruin a story. Like, I mean, like if you're gonna make a fantasy world and you're not gonna use any of the words that we use to communicate with each other, well, it's gonna be hard to fucking read.
Yeah, well, so like zoology and botany.
Yeah.
So they have that in this world, but I guess what you're sort of getting at there goes the other direction too. If you're watching something where so many things are specialized, it becomes like, this is too much.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There's a fine line.
Yeah, you can do it like
you'll
with
accept.
like, like when they're like, use storm as a cuss word and shit like that.
Yeah.
They're not saying shit,
that's
fuck,
a good choice,
and that kind of stuff. That's, that's fine. But like if you're going to, there's another word for zoology and botany and math
then
and
just
geometry, then it's like, what the fuck, man? I got to learn a new language to read your book?
Yeah. Yeah, those are interesting choices that have to be made. It works. I mean, it's just every now and then it's kind of funny because you're in this world and you're like, it's just those little
sometimes it can throw you out.
Which,
sometimes sometimes it's too modern.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they were sitting there going like, Kaladin's like, oh shit, I'm at the Shattered Plains, shit is lit.
Or that
would throw me out of the story.
He came across a dead body and some new Jordans.
Yeah.
That could be a problem. Be like, wait, huh? Who's Jordan?
The sneakers are lit, bro.
Hold on, they're on fire? They're lit on fire?
Yeah.
Why would he put them on?
Yeah.
Well, he's gonna burn his feet. This doesn't make sense. Is everybody okay? I'm gonna say the next time someone says, "Oh, dude, you came last night. It was lit." Is everyone okay? That's what I need to know first. Anybody call 911? Did the fire department
start
show up?
Throwing in like music lyrics, like fucking lean back and shit. It's like lean back. Like people are like, what? Hold on, Fat Joe exists in the world?
Yeah, why not? Culture.
But yeah, it's fun to talk about that. It's fun to think about like the ramifications of the not reading and the glyphs and the fucking the weird money system. Because I mean, if when you write those kind of things into a book, I mean that's exactly where your mind's going to go. Is like it's so different from our world.
How does it play out?
Yeah, like I mean, and obviously there's limitations to where you can't go. You can get into the weeds where if you wanted if you wanted Sanderson to make everything line up exactly how you think it should, it's probably going to blow up the story. Where it's better for him to not explore that in depthly, just to have it a little bit. This is just the way it is, rather than explaining every single facet of their idiosyncratic ways of
traits of their world.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's certain things to go with, certain things to make adaptable, at least language wise, to our world. It's a decent balance thus far.
Yeah.
We'll see when someone says shit was lit, then we'll see how we feel about it.
Yeah. But that's just gonna be because one of Syl's friends is named Lit, and so
or it could be Kabsal.
They start calling everything like one of Syl's friends is really cool and his name's Lit, and so they just they start calling things that are cool Lit from that.
Nice.
That's how he works it in.
Cal's little brother would use it. But
nah, he's kind of a nerd. He wouldn't use cool language.
Is he? He's all about rocks.
Yeah, fucking nerd.
Vines.
Like, look at my colored rocks.
Isn't he like a little kid though? I mean,
yeah, big dork. Collecting rocks. Who cares about
call
stupid rocks?
5-year-olds dorks.
Yeah.
Jesus.
He's like 9. You can call little kids dorks. They like it. But yeah, so then when she's in her study, this is where we get like, okay, Shallan's not just an artist; she's like otherworldly artist. So she closed her eyes and fixed an image in her mind, Kharbranth, as she'd memorized it in the moment soon after landing on the docks, waves surging against the wooden posts, the salty scent to the air, men climbing rigging, calling one another with excitement, and the city itself rising up the hillside, homes stacked atop homes, not a speck of land wasted, bells distant, tinkling softly in the air. She opened her eyes and began to draw. Her fingers moved on their own, sketching broad lines first. The crack-like valley the city was situated in, see, and the port, here squares to be homes, there a slash to mark a switchback. So she starts drawing these things, starts off just broad lines, and then starts going back through more and more detail.
Yeah, they go into really good detail in terms of how she actually draws, and it does seem like she goes into this almost like a trance state at times. And I like the way Sanderson does it because it becomes, she does it on instinct. She basically, it even states like she does what feels right in the moment. She doesn't think too much. She simply did what felt right, is what he says. And it seems like there's a few times we get this insinuation, and sometimes it's clearly stated that once she's done with the image, it like goes away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's like she's locked in once she's captured it, which shows like she's got this inane ability that's extraordinary. It's not just an ability to try to get things down. It's ingrained within her. Like she has this special ability.
Yeah, it's a different level. Like, I mean, she talks about, and she's like, once she finished it, tension bled from her body as if released from her fingertips into the pencil. She lost track of time as she worked. Sometimes she felt like she was entering a trance, everything else fading. Her fingers almost seemed to draw on their own accord. It was so much easier to think while drawing. And so she draws the thing completely from memory. And then, she released it into her sketch. There was a sense of relaxation to that, as if her mind was put under tension, holding memories until they could be used. And then she draws Yalb next.
Yeah, that's really interesting just to picture, because we get that too when she'll take a look at something and then capture it in her mind, and she even like blinks as if the blink is like the aperture of the camera. You know what I mean? It's like capturing the image. And then she just zones in and draws it, which, interestingly enough, we get later, she'll be drawing something and then these other images will come in and she's like, where the fuck did that come from? As if she wasn't even aware of it. Which is an interesting addition to bring in on Sanderson's part, because now you're like having this other subconscious bleed in.
Yeah.
What's happening there, brings up really interesting questions.
Yeah, and the way she describes it is pretty cool too, because she's like, when she drew, she didn't feel as if she worked with only charcoal and paper. In drawing a portrait, her medium was the soul itself. There were plants from which one could remove a tiny cutting, a leaf, or a bit of stem, then plant it and grow a duplicate. When she collected a memory of a person, she was snipping free a bud of their soul, and she cultivated and grew it on the page. Charcoal for sinew, paper pulp for bone, ink for blood, the paper's texture for skin. She fell into a rhythm, a cadence, the scratching of her pencil, like the sound of breathing from those she depicted. And then she sees creation spren, or popping up out of the ground, like a dozen creation spren coming around her when watching her as she's doing this shit.
Yeah, that was part of what I was talking about earlier, where the creation, like this idea of creation spren, but also the death spren or whatever, like it seems to be an enhancement of that connectedness within their world. Like that life force is shown clearer.
Yeah, because I mean, it's clearly they're associated with different feelings, different objects, different types of things. Like there's the creation spren, there's a shame spren, logic spren. Then you have things like rot spren, which that's not being attracted to an emotion, that's being attracted to decaying flesh, and so that's different. So it's objects, things, emotions, like it seems like the world itself, basically, just kind of any type of thing, there's like spren for it.
It seemed like, if I remember, there's a conversation between Cal and I think his mother, maybe, or her father, where they talk about it as change. It's the change in things.
Yeah, that's so when he was like, oh yeah, so there's shit spren. She's like, hey, watch your mouth. And he's like, no, I'm asking, is there shit spren?
He says dung, but yeah, I just listened to that, I think, last night. Yeah. What I thought was interesting and gave it more of a perspective was when they describe it here, Usually the shapes were things they had seen recently: an urn, a person, a table, a wheel, a nail. Speaking of the spren seen recently. Always of the same silvery color, always the same diminutive height. They imitated shapes exactly, but moved them in strange ways. A table would roll like a wheel. An urn would shatter and repair itself. Like, that image right there means a lot to me, that the urn would shatter and repair itself. It's like the spren know it inside and out. You know what I'm saying? Like, they know, because to see an urn, it's like you see that object. And if you're seeing it just on a real just general look, it's just a object. There's a shape. But if you see it to then break and bring it back apart, you're seeing the fragility of it, or like what composes it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, they're interesting because like there's obviously no corollary to that, and there's not little creatures that pop up from emotions or from rotting skin or things along those lines. So it's very different. It's not like anything I've read. I haven't read many stories with anything that I could compare it to.
This is one of the things that it's one of the extra elements that really attracted me to the books early on. I think it was one of the first things I brought up to you where I'm like, this is really interesting and then also how you're introduced to it. You're like, there's spren here, there, coming out of the ground around your feet, fear spren, all these. But then there's sill. So you're like, well, hold on, what is this? So there's more to this to her, but she's also confused to it. So there's something more happening here. And again, that's got to be connected with Kaladin as well. But I love the element. Because
like they
so interesting.
Well, they like these don't seem, they're not talking to her. They're not having conversations with her. And they, Syl makes herself, she turns herself into different objects and different things. But she also usually is turning herself into like a little girl, little woman that's, walking around, walking through the air. And then whereas these things are turning themselves, it's their objects and tables and vases and that kind of shit. So it's like, it's not even something, because when you see Syl, you see like a little fairy. But then when you hear about like the other different spren, like most of the descriptions, they don't look anything humanoid at all. And these are specifically not turning into, humanoid. They're turning into vases and shit. Like, so
what?
It's very different because your first instinct would be like, oh, spren, so like fairies. And it's like, except for some of them look nothing like a humanoid figure, and fairies are like little tiny humans.
It's especially interesting how it's described by Shallan, because the way she sees it, she learned to ignore them. They weren't substantial. If she moved her arm through one, the figure would just smear like scattered sand and reform. She never felt a thing when touching one.
Yeah.
So it's just like a hazy. It's almost like when you close your eyes and you can picture little things that we see floating. Right. When our eyes are closed, or sometimes even when our eyes are open, you can see little things sort of floating. Obviously, this isn't that, because this is more substantial than that. But she describes them as being insubstantial. They're not substantial. Therefore, they are somewhat like that, and they're almost like ethereal,
Yeah.
Or it's almost
to
like
an extent,
LSD
like,
vision.
but then there's also like Syl grabs that leaf, that poisonous leaf that Kaladin.
She smacks Kaladin.
She smacks him. During the Bridge 4 chapters. So there's
something more to her, obviously.
There's something. There's a sense where that there is no substance to them. Your hand can just pass right through them. But then there's also seems to be, there is some substance. So it's weird. It's kind of like the green ghost from Ghostbusters. They can slime people. Yeah, Slimer.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
Huh? He can eat pizza.
Yeah.
And slime all over the wall.
Except for he didn't really eat it. Like, he would throw the food down, like, it would just go straight through him, wouldn't it?
Also, did he actually hurt anything?
He would just slime him.
Yeah, it was just kind of creepy. And
it was just gross. Slime on him. Yeah. It was just like a gross thing. I don't think he was, like, taking people out.
That was weird. in retrospect. There was the guy that was the painting. That was the creep show.
Yeah, that was
the dangerous dude.
That was
Carpathia or something. Carpathian.
Just the premise of those movies is ridiculous. Like beyond the ghost, like especially that one with the painting is coming alive, and and then like the first one, it was New York. All the shit talking is making all the anger in the city and everybody yelling at each other is causing ghosts to fucking exist.
It's like the basis of most Christmas movies.
Yeah.
It's like if you believe he exists, it's like basically that, right? Kind of in reverse. It's like, oh, all the anger. Well, it's kind of the same thing in many ways. It's all the anger is creating these bad vibes, and it's freaking out, what's her face from Alien. It's freaking her out, man.
Yeah.
Sigourney Weaver's getting freaked out, bro.
And then
have that.
And then she ends up sets the page aside, and she's like, some men collected trophies, others collected weapons or shields, many collected spheres. Shallan collected people and interesting creatures. She developed the habit of memorizing faces, then drawing them later after her father had discovered her sketching the gardeners. His daughter drawing pictures of dark eyes. He'd been furious with her. One of the infrequent times he directed his infamous temper at his daughter. So it's more, you just keep learning more about her dad, like that he's got a real bad temper. He's a, political type of dude trying to move up. He doesn't direct his temper at Shallan, but he also kind of keeps her sequestered and away from people.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of times the way she describes her upbringing, she was kind of sheltered and was kept, behind lock and key for the future until he promised to somebody, basically.
Yeah, and then
I did want to mention before we pass over it, the 10 essences. I don't know if you thought there was any relevance to that. I just thought it was interesting that he brought this up or brought it in when we were hearing about when he's going further into the Spren. And then the 10 essences, basically, it sounds like when he says there, each of the 10 essences are analogous part of the human body: blood for liquid, hair for wood, so forth. Eyes being associated with crystal and glass, the windows into a person's mind and spirit. Again, that just sort of speaks to me of what he's kind of doing with the Spren here as well, where it's like the overall life's force of this world and how things are interconnected. That's kind of worth it. I don't know if there's more to it in the future. It seems like something that would be a motif that would be worked out later, but I don't know.
It depicted Yalb and the porter in detail with hints of the busy city behind. She'd gotten their eyes right. That was the most important. Each of the 10 essences had an analogous part of the human body: blood for liquid, hair for wood, and so forth. The eyes were associated with. Yeah, it seems to be. There's obviously things. The number 10 comes up a lot, and
3
the 10 heralds and shit like that. So there's. I don't know though. Like the 10 essences, I'm not sure on what the relevance is as far as like blood for liquid and hair for wood and so forth. The eyes were associated with crystal and glass. The windows into a person's mind and spirit. Seems to be just kind of some. Their religion is obviously. A large part of the religion is built around the heralds, the Almighty and the heralds. And so the 10 essences, you imagine like they probably each one of the heralds is associated with one of the 10 essences or something like that would be my guess.
All right.
But, and then he mentions like her father hadn't minded this. Zoology and botany were proper feminine pursuits, and had encouraged her to choose natural history as her calling. So when she's drawing like animals or the plants and that kind of stuff, he's cool with that. That's proper woman shit. Don't be fucking drawing these dark eyes and gross peasants. But you want to do like some proper things and like draw like a bug. That's some good lady work.
Yeah, seems a little weird.
Yeah,
they have their hang-ups. And,
weird prejudices. Yeah. I mean, obviously every group has their prejudices, but they're very strange in this world because I mean, they're strange, period, but they're specific to this world, and they're strange in the fact that they're not related to anything we're familiar with. But yeah, and then the calling is like the what they dedicate a profession to please the Almighty. So they pick a calling and then they just dedicate themselves to that thing, which you would expect. That makes perfect sense for a society where you have a very poor society overall, and they don't have a lot of like free time. This is not going to be a society where they can afford to take off weekends. So they're not like they're not wealthy enough, and so you would expect a society like that it would be you pick something and then you just dedicate yourself to that very specialized knowledge and information and that kind of stuff that you would expect in a world like this.
I thought that was kind of interesting when the Ardents or the particular Ardent comes in here in a moment, where Shallan is talking about how they had Ardents in her home. And they're basically sort of like owned or hired, and part of their purpose is helping people find their calling.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like teachers as well as
mentors. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, which is a cool it's a cool thing to include in the world. It's necessary in a society that's going to function such as this one does.
Yeah, and then so she decides she's going to draw Jasnah, and I like that Shallan opened her eyes and began to draw with vigor, intentionally losing herself. The less she was in the now, the more she was in the then, the better the sketch would be. The other two pictures had been warm-ups. This was the day's masterpiece. And then she starts drawing her, and she's like the power of change itself, the power by which the Almighty had created Roshar. Yet another name, allowed to pass only the lips of the Ardents. Elethanethel? I don't know.
Elethanethial?
Yeah, whatever. He who transforms. So that's kind of the Almighty, their God, their creator. And so she's doing this kind of thing, and she's like, the watching someone that should not be a heretic wielding one of the most sacred powers in all the world. And she's talking about this is like the power of God himself. And so that's how she kind of depicts the soulcaster. And then she's like, when she's doing it, she like loses herself. She's like there, basically. Yeah. She's like, Shallan could smell the musty hallway. She could hear the child whimpering. She could feel her own heart beating in anticipation. The boulder would soon change, sucking away the Stormlight in Jasnah's gemstone. It would give up its essence, becoming something new. Shallan's breath caught in her throat, and then the memory faded, returning her to the quiet, dim alcove. Page now held a perfect rendition of the scene, worked in blacks and grays. The princess's proud figure regarded the fallen stone, demanding that it give way before her will. It was her, Shallan knew, with the intuitive certainty of an artist, that this was one of the finest pieces she had ever done. In a very small way, she had captured Jasnah Kholin, something the devotees had never managed. That gave her a euphoric thrill. Even if this woman rejected Shallan again, one fact would not change. Jasnah Kholin had joined Shallan's collection. He does a really good job. I like the way he describes like her process and her drawing these kind of things. It kind of reminds, it's similar to Rothfuss when he's writing music. It's written in a because you couldn't to make it an interesting thing to read. Someone drawing something, it's not the easiest thing in the world. Yeah. But he does a good job of building a nice pace to it. Like if kind of the pace kind of picks up while you're reading that, and you kind of feel like her fucking diving into it, and just like this build up as she's releasing this image onto the paper, this creation that she's making.
Yeah, and it almost seems like in a way she's being used. It's like it's working through her, which is it's pretty great. I mean, it's like it just kind of happens, which happens a lot of times with creation in certain art forms. It's like there's the idea, in this case, it's the idea of also articulating the event and the events in her mind, and then she's putting her spin on it as she puts it into form on the page, and then that sort of takes its own spin, and we get to like sort of basically live through it, which is cool. Yeah, he does a good job there.
And then she decides, she looks at this painting, she's like, how am I going to get Jasnah to change her mind? Starts kind of thinking about her. She's like, she's definitely, a woman. She's delicate and she's, a fucking woman to her bone, but she's also, she's very much into, logic and good arguments. And so she's gives all these different things, like she was a woman to the bone, master of the feminine arts, but not by any means delicate. She would appreciate determination. She would listen to another request, but if it had to be presented properly. And she was a rationalist, a woman with the audacity to deny the existence of the Almighty himself based on her own reasoning. Jasnah would appreciate strength, but only if it was shaped by logic. So she writes this letter to her, and she's like, you've rejected my petition. I accept that. Yet, as anyone trained in informal inquiry knows, no supposition should be treated as axiomatic. The actual argument usually read, no suppositions save for the existence of the Almighty himself should be held as axiomatic. But this wording would appeal to Jasnah. A scientist must be willing to change her theories if experiment disproves them. I hold to the hope that you treat decisions in a like manner, as preliminary results pending further information. From our brief interaction, I can see that you appreciate tenacity. You complimented me on continuing to seek you out. Therefore, I presume that you will not find this letter a breach of good taste. Take it as proof of my ardor to be your reward and not as disdain for your expressed decision. And then she goes through and she explains that the reason she's lacking is not because of determination. And she just hasn't had a proper education. She hasn't had proper tutors. Her tutors are, get scared off by her douchey dad, running them off. And so most of what she's learned, she's had to learn on her own just from the limited access that she has. And so she, makes the argument that someone who's just had the ideas just drilled into them is not going to appreciate what you offer as much as someone who has grinded for every bit of information that they got. They've done this on their own, and it's not something that they're forced to do. They did it on their own because they wanted it.
Yeah, this is tremendous because it can be a little bit heavy-handed, but because it's towards Jasnah, I think it totally works, and it ends up working. But it's thoughtful and it's very reasoned. It's very logical. All that appeals to Jasnah. It also shows that she's thinking through the thought process from both ends. And it also shows in a way that, especially this, to me, gets emphasized with the logic spren, that form of tiny storm clouds who were attracted to great arguments. Shallan had never seen them before, which tells you Jasnah is a great teacher to push her to do this. You know what I mean? Like, to push her to go to this level, she's already getting to the point where she's going to learn to a greater degree. The whole 2 chapters is fucking great, because then when Jasnah ends up like taking everything out of her bag and looking at all her items, it's like she gets this buildup of who Shallan is. She's challenged her. Shallan at first didn't react so well, didn't really hold her bearings, but then in the same way showed that she's not just to be ridden over.
Yeah.
And so it's a whole dance between the two of them, and she's denied twice, and then Yalb steps in and kind of encourages her and everything, so she goes past it. But this, especially this letter, is huge. And when I was saying heavy-handed, it could come across in a way is a bit appeasing, which for me, when I feel like I'm being appeased to, it kind of turns me off.
Yeah.
But in terms of Jasnah, it's pretty necessary in this sense, because she needs to know that she knows. She needs to know that Shallan knows what's necessary and how to make her argument, but then also still how to impress her, because, well, she has to. If she's not impressive, why the fuck would she take her on as a ward?
Yeah, I mean, she's got to dance that line. She's got to demonstrate her skills and also give an explanation for why she's deficient, and also give a reason for why she would be better than someone who's, more educated than her. Because I mean, like Jasnah's been asking her, here's all these questions. You don't have these answers to them. Like, okay, well, I got to sell myself on, even though I don't have this information, why I would still be better than someone who already had it. And so I think
I would do more with it if I had it.
Yeah. And she'll appreciate it more. She'll work harder. It's showing, like, because you don't want if you're hiring someone for a company, you don't want to bring in someone who's just coming in just to fucking clock a paycheck. You want someone who's going to fucking grind for the, who's pulling in the same direction and is going to has the same determination that you do. You want people who are determined, who want to be there, not just someone who's like, I just need a job. You hire people who just need a job, and you're going to get that kind of effort.
Well, and then you also don't necessarily want people that come in like, oh yeah, dude, I know this in and out.
Yeah.
Like, it's one to be fired up, but it's another to be like, so you're not going to work. You're not going to be a team player at all because you already have this shit figured out. I've been doing this forever, dude. Like, I'm going to, the company's going to change around me. I'm so good at this. Like, nah, bro, you're going to have to fill in because you're being hired. We're not being hired to reshape the company.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely don't want to be going in and correcting Jasnah's grammar and giving her tips on her how she should dress.
Yeah, the fingerless gloves. And that comes up later.
Yeah, you always keep bringing up like the great stuff like
you're looking forward to.
Yeah, like I'm like I can't wait to talk about this, and here's something we're gonna fucking give you a little prequel to before we talk about this. But yeah, so she goes, she writes this out for her. And then I love the fact that she goes, her arguments seem imperfect now that she'd considered them. She exposed her ignorance, then expected Jasnah to welcome her. Still, it seemed the right thing to do. For all the fact that this letter was a lie built of truth, she hadn't truly come to partake of Jasnah's knowledge. She had come as a thief. That made her conscience itch, and she nearly reached out and crumpled the page. I like the fact that, she's like, all right, this argument, here it is. This is what I'm going to present to her to become the warden. And she's like, but, it's all bullshit. I mean, it's based on truth, but it's the central premise of it is complete bullshit. I don't want to be your ward. Well, at least I'm not here. That's not why I'm here.
Yeah, it's definitely puts a much more interesting edge to the entire situation. The fact that it's not just that she's reluctant. It's not her purpose. She's still interested, right? But it makes the two of them more interesting, right? Jasnah's already interesting because we don't know exactly what her deal is. And then Shallan, we kind of know, but we keep finding out more and more. And then she's having to play the role and then starting to... It's almost like that Stockholm syndrome type of thing. You almost feel like that could be playing out. You know what I'm saying? Because Jasnah is so interesting. It kind of builds that element. But she's also doubting herself throughout as well because we get her in her dialogue where Shallan maybe I'm not capable and all that. Yeah. And she has, regrets and, feels bad that she's a thief. But at the same time, it's what she has to do.
Yeah, and then she gets this Ardent coming in, early 20s, and he comes in and they have their little playful banter back and forth. With, would you mind terribly if I waited with you? Of course not, Ardent. She nodded her head in respect and gathered up her in haste, preparing for a seat for him. I can't take your seat, Brightness. I'll fetch you another for myself. And so he comes in, and then he's like, he sees her art. And he's immediately blown away by it. He's like, "Holy shit, you did this!" And like, it's reaffirming that it's not just she's a good artist. Like this guy's his nips are blown off as soon as he sees her artwork.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it does help that over and over again, because again, man, we are with her when she does it. We're not seeing it. Right. And she can't just be like, this is the best I've done. Yeah. But we don't have a comparison. She's not Picasso. We don't know how great it is. So yeah, we need these other eyes to be hitting the page and saying, "Oh shit, this is fucking phenomenal." Like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
What are you doing here?
Yeah. It's like he asked if Jasnah had taught her this skill with a pencil. No, Ardent. Still so formal, he said, smiling at her. Tell me, am I so intimidating as that? I've been brought up to show respect to Ardents. Well, I myself find that respect is like manure. Use it where needed, and growth will flourish. Spread it on too thick, and things start to smell. His eyes twinkled. And
that's great. That's a great line.
Yeah. And
so, that's kind of like what I was talking about a minute ago when I was saying when you're a little heavy-handed with like trying to appease somebody.
Yeah.
That's what it's like. It's like, all right, chill the fuck out.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I mean,
what are you up to?
Unless you're just a egomaniac douchebag, you don't want people bowing and scraping before you.
Well, it makes you when it's to an uncomfortable level, or you're not used to it. You're like, what's this fucking guy up to?
Yeah,
like, I don't trust this dude.
No.
Why are you being so nice? What's the deal?
It's
here?
they're either just extremely weak, and then it's just like, dude, get away from me. Like, there's something wrong with you if you're this fucking hung up on me. And then or it's like
to pick your wallet or something.
It's like, man, like checking your pockets to make sure everything's still there. What is fucking going on here? This guy cannot be real. It's not a real person.
Or they're on ecstasy. Could be that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
You're being a little too friendly,
yeah.
man.
Like, why are you rubbing your face on my leg?
I can't say that's happened to me.
But
sounds that would be alarming.
Yeah. Then so, he gets her to kind of back off on that kind of stuff, make some jokes about like standing up on a table. And
yeah, I like his the guy's likable for sure, where he's like, "Oh, I'll do a jig."
Yeah.
You gonna stop me? I'll get up here. Oh, you don't want me to do it?
Yeah, the table jig threat almost always works. I've only ever had to go through with it once due to a lost bet against Brother Lannon. And so he gets her to calm down with that, and then he goes back to, now you were about to explain to me where you learned such a skill with a pencil. Practice, Shallan said. I should suspect that is how everyone learns eventually. Wise words again. I'm beginning to wonder which of us is the ardent. But surely you had a master to teach you. Dandos the Oilsworn. Ah, the true master of pencils if there ever was one. Now, not that I doubt your word, Brightness, but I'm rather intrigued how Dandos, Heraldin, could have trained you in arts, as last I checked, he's suffering a rather terminal and perpetual ailment, namely that of being dead, for 300 years. Shallan blushed. My father had a book of his instructions. You learned this from a book? Yes. He looked back at the picture. I need to read more.
Yeah, that's pretty great. I mean, and again, shows her just how extraordinarily adept she is, that you can become. I think obviously she has this innate ability that we've sort of read her in her process. Plus, she's always looking for images, right? She's always taking these things down. So it seems to be her calling.
Yeah,
right?
and she doesn't have, she's not getting tutored in this, and it's not any kind of one-on-one training. It's just I read a book once, and that's went from there. So yeah, it would be extreme, be like became a master artist and with no training other than you watched fucking dude on PBS fucking
Bob
drawing
Ross.
Bob Ross fucking drawing fucking mountains and trees.
It's kind of like, I mean, I've had people ask me like why I'm so good at basketball. And if I ever had a coach,
I say a lot of Michael Jordan,
and I say Larry Bird, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Larry Bird was your coach?" I was like, "No, man, I just watched game tape."
Yeah, I just watched him, and then I saw him like he would bend his arm and then push the ball, and then it would go in the basket. And so I did that. Your elbow, like bend it and then move it forward.
So you kind of bend your knees. You bend your knees, and then you push up while you do it.
He really uses his joints. Like, I'm really, I focused in, like, his joints would move a lot when he would do these things.
What a weird way to analyze playing basketball. Use your joints a lot. Like, huh? Yeah. Well, I guess you do, but
really, I wish I could have seen him like shoot barefoot so I could get the toes right, because I'm not sure if I'm using my toes right.
Well, you definitely don't wear the shoes they wore, because that shit sucks today. That's terrible for your feet. Doesn't work at all.
Yeah, and so they talk about.
I was just gonna say their back and forth is great. Like, she's really, and it could be part of because it's interesting because in her head, we're kind of like, man, she's a little bit not lacking of self-confidence, but not 100% sure of her purpose, which therefore kind of makes her a little bit she can be standoffish, but with him, she's like, this is a supernatural conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like their banter's great. Like their back and forth is great.
Yeah. Yeah. And you get little pieces of information. He does a good job in these 2 chapters of building little nuggets of world building information and sewing it into the conversation. So like you're from Jochebed, I presume, from the hair, and she's or from the accent, and she shows her red hair. So obviously redheads typically come from Jochebed, and then he brings up, no, it's the church. He's like, the people over there are very traditional, and there's a lot of bowing and scraping. You show the audience, makes me uncomfortable. So it's a more religious area than is typical, obviously, and that shows with Shallan. Shallan is very religious. Mm-hmm. You know, she's exactly what he just says there's a lot of bowing and scraping, and that's exactly what she's doing when he first shows up. And even when in her head, she's pretty religious.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of moments where she's like clutching her pearls.
Yeah.
You know, where she's like, oh my goodness, with a bunch of different circumstances here, but also in other parts I've read in the books, where it's like she's very formal.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's raised to be that way, it seems.
Yeah, there's one part where it brings up the fact that, like, she's talking about, like, Thaylen women, and she's like, but they're at least proper, and, you know, in this regard and that regard, like, they wear their fucking, you know, kitten mitten too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so so they have their good back and forth, and they get a lot of that kind of stuff. And he's there, basically he's saying he's there to because Jasnah's a heretic, and so it'd be a notch on his belt if he could, you know, get her to come back to the church. So they got these guys going to Shallan to Jasnah, trying to bring her back on board. And yeah, so he leaves, and you know, they kind of leave on a little bit of flirty terms, where he's like, you know, what can I bring you next time? She's like, jam. And he cocked his head. I like it, she said. You asked what I was fond of. Jam. So it shall be. And then he takes off, and Jasnah entered a moment later, accompanied by a small group of servants. She did not look pleased.
And, well, I was going to say, he ends up, I mean, spoiler alert, he ends up bringing jam.
Yeah, he does brings jam. And I'm not talking about, like, basketball. Like, he doesn't bring the thunder. He brings actual jam.
Yeah, like jelly jam.
Yeah.
Like a fruit jam.
Yeah.
I don't remember what kind of jam it is exactly, but he does bring it.
He brings different kinds.
What? That's so stupid. The image I have in my head now is he comes in with like wristbands,
brings a basketball goal
through a
jams it in for. I brought your jam. I got your jam right here. Fucking does a windmill.
Fucking ridiculous. Dominique. And comes down and spreads it on bread.
Coming in,
did you like
got his shaved head, and he's got his headband on. Fucking shorts with the socks pulled all the way up to the fucking knees.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah,
but he can throw down. He can jam.
Yeah, he brings the funk and the jam.
Fly Slamma Jamma. That's what his nickname is.
I don't think it is though, but you know.
It is. I just gave it to him. That's going to be his nickname from now on. That's all I'm going to refer to him as is Fly Slamma-Jamma, bringing the
Pretty sure
jam.
just so you know, it's Phi Slamma-Jamma.
It's
not Fly.
Well, I'm not trying to take their trademark. I'm giving him.
Oh, okay. One. You're protecting the copyright.
Yeah.
Good work. Good work. Yeah.
I'm trying to get sued. But I think that's it on that chapter for me.
I had like one. Nah, that's all right. Yeah, that's it.
All right, so chapter 8 is titled Nearer the Flame. In this chapter, Shallan leaves dejected, but while she's sitting in the hallway, Jasnah calls her back in, ends up reading her letter and deciding that if Shallan gets her education in order, she can come back and she can proposition her again. Shallan leaves and then is convinced by Yalb to give it a third chance. And so she goes to a bookstore, gets the books she'll need to learn. And then she heads back to the library. Jasnah comes in and sees that she's very persistent and hell-bent on becoming a reward. So she ends up letting her come on board.
Yes, I like these too. I like the back and forth. It makes Jasnah look like more of a... not completely normal person, but more humanized.
Yeah. Yeah, and, less of a robot, yeah. But, and so, it starts off with victory. We stand atop the mount. We scatter them before us. Their homes become our dens. Their lands are now our farms, and they shall burn. And we once did, in a place that is hollow and forlorn, collected on a Shashan, 18 seconds pre-death. Subject was light-eyed spinster of the 8th dawn. It's similar to the one we read in the last chapter. I think it pertains to the origins for people in this world. But Shallan's fears were confirmed as Jasnah looked straight at her, then lowered her safe hand to her side in a marked frustration. So you are here. Brightness, Kola and Shallan said, I have wasted enough time on you already, Jasnah said, eyes furious. You will withdraw Mistavar, and I will not see you again during my time here. Am I understood? Shallan's hopes crumbled. She shrank back. There was gravity, Jasnah Kulin. One did not disobey her. One need only look into her eyes to understand. I'm sorry to have bothered you, Shallan whispered, clutching her satchel and leaving with as much dignity as she could manage. She barely kept the tears of embarrassment and disappointment from her eyes as she hastened down the hallway, feeling like a complete fool. Then she just sits on the ground. She wrapped her arms around her legs, free hand clasping her safe hand through the fabric of her cuff, breathing quietly. That's kind of erotic, that... clasping that safe hand through the fabric, breathing quietly. That's
erotic.
That is going to be super hot during the show.
Because it's the safe hand.
Just think when she's caressing that safe hand, if she takes some of the cloth and pulls it down a little bit and shows a little bit of wrist.
You almost see the other hand.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that safe hand's got to be so hot since you don't see it typically.
Dude, can you imagine seeing left hand wrist?
Is it left hand?
Yeah. They you ain't gonna fucking cover up the fucking right hand. What are you, fucking barbaric animals?
Yeah. You got to cover up one of them apparently.
Yeah, the left one. The
absurd.
Left one's the sexy one, not the right one. The right one, the right is just a hand.
Yeah, but it has most of the utility for most people. What if you're left-handed in this world? I guess you can't be.
Yeah, that's why you don't want to fucking put a kitten mitten on your right hand. That's the useful hand. That's a workman's hand. That left hand? Look at your left hand. Your left hand is way sexier than your right hand. That is just... that is a known thing.
Yeah, that's a known thing.
Everybody says that.
Yeah. That is ridiculous.
Left hand, man.
So,
left hand is fucking lit. Lit on fire.
That senior photo, I can't remember, the old school photos where you put your one hand under your chin.
Mm-hmm.
If it's the left hand, is that super pornographic?
Yeah, if it's uncovered.
Yeah.
If you're like, like when they show like women like, biting the glove and like kind of pulling the glove off with their teeth like that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, fucking loads blowing.
Ridiculous.
But yeah, she talks about angry people unsettled her. She couldn't help but think of her father in one of his tirades. Couldn't help but hear screams, bellows, and whimpers. Was she weak because confrontation unsettled her so? She felt that she was.
Yeah, she seemed to get... It seems like she got screamed at a lot by her father.
Like, not... She says that one of the rare times that his tirades was directed at her, but it seems like he's one of those fucking angry dudes.
Or I guess she sees him scream at other people.
Like, if you're a little fucking kid or, if someone who's way fucking bigger than you is, like, flying off in the handle, like, you're going to feel uncomfortable being around that fucking person.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the case, and that happens anytime. Although the older I've gotten, I find it hilarious when I see people get really mad in public.
Mm-hmm.
It cracks
it doesn't bother me. Like, if it's so like in public, especially if it's,
well, if it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, if obviously. I was like locked in a room with someone fucking, flipping the fuck out, then I'm going to be a little uncomfortable because I'm going to feel like I'm going to have to fight this dude.
Yeah, that's not what
But yeah, someone just like yelling at someone or shit like that, like, those kind of situations. Or like someone talking on their phone, like screaming.
Yeah,
having a screaming match. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, why are you doing this in public? Like, the best is like when it's like some dude like all suited up and like trying to have like a screaming match about something to do with his job, where it's like, dude, you're not coming off like you're some big time. You're coming off like you're a fucking loser and that there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, that's it's a funny image.
Yeah.
It cracks me up. It really cracks me up like almost every time. But yeah, I mean, you see it any time that not any time, but you see it a lot of times in traffic, people flipping out. I remember one time I got out of a car, I was fighting with my girlfriend. I got out of the car. I couldn't take it anymore. I was like, fuck, I'm just going to walk. I got out of the car, and the guy in his car behind me, he goes, yeah, sometimes that's what you got to do. And I was still like angry, but I couldn't help but like smile and laugh. I'm like, yeah, that's what's happening now. I'm going to take the long route home.
I did that with you, with some awful human being, this girl who, like, it was just throughout the night, my anger and dislike of her just kept building. And so, like, by the time, like, we were riding back to our place, and she was talking about something, and it was just like, all right, I'm done. I cannot listen to this girl another second. And so I was like, hey, can you stop at this gas station real quick? You stopped, and then I was like, all right, I'm going to fucking head to my parents' house. You're like, what? I was like, yeah, I'm just going to walk to my parents' house. It was like 10 miles away at like 3 a.m. in the morning. But that was like, I had reached my limit to the point where we were two minutes away from the house where I could have just went to bed. But I couldn't last 2 more minutes with her, where I was just like, I'd rather walk fucking 10 miles to my parents' house and stay there than listen to this fucking girl for 2 more minutes.
Yeah, I remember thinking, this doesn't make any sense. Like, that's what? You're going to go? Yeah, because I knew exactly like how far you'd be going. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah. But no, she did suck.
Yes, terrible person. But yeah, I can feel fucking hopping out of a car. I can be like, no, I'm done. This is over.
There is a limit. That's what I'm talking about, is just reaching that limit. It's really funny though to have that immediately acknowledged by a stranger.
Yeah.
And he was hyped about it too. He's like, yeah, that's what happens. Like,
I had it with one of our friends, him and his girlfriend at the time, now his wife. They were like screaming at each other, and I was in the back seat, and I kept just like thinking, like, I wonder how bad I would get hurt if I just tucked and rolled. It's like I went out of this car. This is the most uncomfortable car ride of all time. They're like screaming at each other like I'm not here. Not even acknowledging it that I'm sitting back here while this is going on. And it was like, I just want to, I mean, I know we're going like 50 miles an hour down the road, but I just kind of want to fucking tuck and roll and see what happens.
You know how funny it would be? Well, I mean, you get hurt really bad, but
yeah,
the idea of them finding out later, like, it wasn't an accident. You just couldn't take their bullshit anymore. Yeah. And they'd have to like look within themselves like, is that bad?
How would you think like this is an accident? How does someone like open up a car door and jump out? Like,
well, they're in the middle
did he accidentally fall out of the car?
It seems like they forgot you're even there.
Yeah.
They're screaming at each other. And then suddenly it's like, oh yeah, that person, our friend, he might be dead. Why did that happen? I couldn't listen anymore.
It sounded like someone fell out of our car. Was there someone with us?
Yeah, that sounds brutal.
Yeah, but yeah, so her dad is sounds like a big old douchebag. Likes to yell at people. But yeah, then so she talks about how she's sitting there and she's like, feeling like what the fuck did we do? Like her brothers trusted her to put all the hope in her ridiculous plan, and now what had she done? Wasted 6 months during which their enemies circled closer, and then somebody comes up, tells her Jasnah wants to talk to her, and I like the part where she's like, the young man gestured back down the hallway to berate, Brightness Colin would like to speak with you. The young man gestured back down the hallway. To berate me further, Shallan thought with a grimace. But a high lady like Jasnah got what she wanted. Fuck that. Like, just the idea that I have to go because of her station, that would 100% make me not do it. I would be willing to suffer whatever the consequences are for leaving, because there's no way I would go back in that room if that's what my mind was thinking.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. I mean, if you have any respect for this person, if this person deserves any respect and they're like, get out of here, I don't want to spend any more time with you, you waste my time already, leave. And then like, hey, by the way, have them come back, I want to shit on them some more. Like, what? Like, how petty of a piece of shit are you? You already made them feel bad.
Yeah,
she's in the hallway crying, basically.
If I think she's called me back in to talk shit, I'm not going back in that room. Be like, no, tell her go fuck yourself.
Yeah, that would not be, yeah. That for sure, I'm not going back in to have that happen. If that was going to be the case, and be like, I'm never going to see this person again. I don't have any respect for you.
No, but obviously Jasnah's...
It was the opposite.
Yeah, she felt bad, so it would have been a bad idea for Shallan to do what I would have done. Be like, tell that bitch go fuck herself.
Yeah, she just walks by the door and says,
double middle fingers. Comes in, just like fucking blasting double middle fingers in her face.
And their world, that left-handed middle finger, holy shit!
Oh my god! Well,
that's so meaningful.
That is like a slap in the face, but kind of turns you on at the same time.
You keep making it sexual. Like
it is sexual. It's so sexual
because of depravity. I mean, just because it's not shown. I mean, dude, well, nah.
You'll see. Like you see like how fucking hot these fucking left hands get.
I can't wait until the last book of the series, and it's just all orgiastic left hand.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how they completely women just take over the world. They just completely, guys can't function because they just start walking around with no gloves on.
Jesus. This is part of like what I was talking about earlier, where Jasnah is like fatigued, and she's showing signs of literally just like being tired and exhausted, and then apologizes and completely goes in another direction. Very humanizing, making her seem like a decent person.
Yeah, and so she feels bad for what she, the way she treated her. And there's the great line where she talks about how basically like, the things that you are most like yourself that you hate in other people. What does she say? You were simply showing persistent, a trait I normally encourage. Storms a light. I've often been guilty of stubbornness myself. Sometimes we find it harder to accept in others that which we cling to in ourselves. My only excuse can be that I put myself under an unusual amount of strain lately. But that's a lot of times that is true. Like people that, things they're guilty of, if someone else does it, like it's a much fucking bigger deal. Like people who really have a problem with cheating, a lot of times it's because they are fucking, they're the ones that do that.
When you're in a relationship and you're doing nothing of the sort, yet you keep getting accused of it, that person is cheating.
It's not always the case.
Nine times out of 10, though, man, that's a very your perception should be up. Now you should start looking. I'm not saying you should start looking for things, but be aware because they're showing sure signs of doth protest too much. I think you had mentioned before. Yeah, but not exactly in that sense. But this kind of made me think because you're talking about that guy in the suit that's yelling at people. It made me think of it in this moment because I put myself under an unusual amount of strain lately. That's the guy in that suit with the cell phone. You know what kind of stress I'm under? You know what kind of pressure I'm under? Like when people say that to you, it's like, no, of course not. Nobody knows what stress you're under and nobody really gives a shit. Really? I mean, why would I? You know
how much this deal is going to cost me? If this doesn't go down? Bags of money. Bags.
Yeah, that's your problem, and I'm witnessing it right now. Yeah. Like your inability to cope with pressure apparently is showing big time.
Yeah, that you feel like guys like that, like the only thing that's gonna make me gonna be able to comfort me is even though I lost this 10 million, is I got 100 million in the bank and I got a fucking huge hog. You hear that, ladies? Huge.
How do I deal with this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, he's not,
laying it on a little fucking thick. This feels like a performance, buddy. But yeah, so then she tells her that the Ardent had came looking for her, and then she also brings up the fact that the letter that she wrote for him.
Oh, I was going to say that
letter she wrote for her.
There was a part that I think you're about to go over where she says, I know what people say of me. This is Jasnah speaking to Shallan. I know what people say of me. I should hope that I am not as harsh as some say, though a woman could have far worse than a reputation for sternness. It can serve one well. For some reason, that reminded me of the interview with Michael Jordan in The Last Dance.
Oh, yeah, when he kind of breaks down.
Yeah, it's a really interesting moment because it's like, I mean, he's accomplished everything he can in terms of basketball and, sponsorship and all that type of stuff. And he's a fucking global phenomenon. But the idea that like, well, some people would say you weren't really that nice a teamate.
You're kind of
Wasn't that the comment?
Like a meanie face.
Yeah, you're kind of mean.
Well, you know what? I hope that the multi-millions of dollars more that they made just because they played with me helps them sleep at night.
That's part of it. Part of it is also like, dude, we won championships. Yeah. And a time that was extraordinarily difficult. Like, what the fuck, man?
Like, here's the
There's
thing.
A cost.
Like the part of that was ridiculous to me. It's like, okay, fucking like Luke Longley got fucking paid. And Kerr got fucking paid. And all these guys, they got massive fucking contracts. And it was like, after, they left the Bulls. Like Luke Longley got a massive deal when he left the Bulls, and then he did nothing for the rest of his career. Like, so it was like a lot of these role players that went to other teams and they didn't do shit with other teams because they're not on Jordan's team playing with him. And so their production tanks. And it was like, dude, you don't get to call that guy mean. He made you so much money and you won championships.
And it's the peak of your career. It's the peak of what you did.
Yeah.
The best you ever played, the best you were ever able to accomplish was in that time.
Like, shut the fuck up. Take your money and your championships and go fucking cry to mama.
I think that's what would make one emotional is like, dude, there's like no appreciation for this shit.
Yeah.
This is just a thankless job.
Yeah.
Like that's where I think you have to put yourself, because I don't have any idea. I've never been in that position. Nobody has, really,
No.
or very few people have been put in a position close to that. And then to have that like thrust upon you, it's kind of like, dude, I don't know what to say. But yeah, it's what popped in my mind when I read this. So
yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's what Sanderson had in his mind.
Yeah. Yeah. He was definitely thinking of The Last Dance, which came out after this book.
Well, it's all intertwined. It's
he probably saw an
bro.
advanced copy of it, even though the interview probably took place after he wrote the book. But he's a time traveler.
And it's a human experience intertwined.
Yeah.
Right. We're all one.
But yeah. So Shallan asks her if she read the letter, and then when Jasnah reads it, Jasnah picked up the letter, raising an eyebrow, and Shallan hurriedly undid her satchel and placed the spheres in her money pouch. Then she cursed herself for being so quick, and now she had nothing to do but stand and wait for Jasnah to finish reading. I hate those moments where like you have someone's like reading something, and you got to stand there and wait for them to finish reading it, even if it sucks when it's like a simple text message. Like you go like, oh, here, look what this person wrote me. And then you're like holding your phone there and you're like, fucking done reading this shit? It's taking so long.
I did. Yeah, it's funny you pointed that out, because I do. Yeah, those little moments, it's funny to experience them in like literature or television, where it's just like that awkward moment, which for some reason, man, they are awkward.
Yeah.
But I will like stew in that shit.
Yeah.
Like I'll stand in an elevator and not speak for 100 floors.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I'll just do it. And it's almost like I start to like not necessarily enjoy the awkwardness, but in a way,
Yeah.
In a way, just how fucking weird it is for other people.
Yeah.
Because you see other people fidget. They feel like the need to have to say something, and you can feel that need, but then you just don't encourage it. God,
I don't mind awkward silences, but I definitely that's worn with my patience side, and like waiting for someone to read something is agonizing to me. It's like in my head, it's like what is going on? Why is this taking so long? Like these words they're all right there, laid in order. Just fucking read them. But it's taking so long. The time goes so slow when you're just waiting for someone to finish reading something. It's agonizing to me.
Well, sometimes what you see is, oh, so you have a lot of stuff going on right now. Like you're so distracted from a moment that you can't focus to read, a few sentences, if even that. It's kind of funny. It's funny to see those. You're sort of in someone else's experience for a moment, and you're like, all right, well, you're fucking weird.
But yeah, so she reads it and she's like, is this true? Jasnah said, looking up from the paper. You are self-trained? Yes, Brightness. This is remarkable. Thank you, Brightness. And this letter was a clever maneuver. You correctly assumed that I would respond to a written plea. This shows me your skill with words, and rhetoric of the letter gives proof that you can think logically and make a good argument. Thank you, Brightness, Shallan said, feeling another surge of hope mixed with fatigue. Her emotions had been jerked back and forth like a rope being used for a tugging contest, like tug of war. And then so she's like, very well, the context of a person's life is important. Your circumstances do not excuse your lack of education in history and philosophy, but leniency is in order. I will allow you to petition me again at a later date, a privilege I have never given any aspiring ward. There again, I would even though like it's like she's been shitting on you the whole time, and so this is finally the little carrot she's giving you. But the whole like, so you can come back and ask me out again later after you prove yourself. You're like, no, fuck you.
Yeah, it's a little rough.
Fucking bitch. But yeah, I'd be over it if I was Shallan. But Shallan's obviously, she's in a position where she's got a lot riding on this.
Well, I like, again, yeah, Sanderson does a great job of using this as a way to show the desperation. And it's already been stated, but then she has to play it out in her mind. It's like, okay, well, if I had the time, fine. I could come back and, I could study for a while, come back and do all that. But it doesn't matter, man. Like, I have to take a shot now. And Yalb sort of helps point that out. But it's the point of like, I don't have a fucking choice here. I'm going to have to do it. So what's the best I can do? And it works out even faster than she expected it to. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so, she's like, Jasnah had all but promised to accept her at a later date. For the most, that would be a great victory, being trained by Jasnah Klin, thought by some to be the finest living scholar, would have ensured a bright future. Shallan would have married extremely well, likely to the son of a high prince, and would have found new social circles open to her. Indeed, if Shallan had possessed the time to train under Jasnah, the sheer prestige of a Kholin affiliation might have been enough to save her house, if only. So, like, that's part of why someone would seek out Jasnah to be her ward. Mm-hmm. It's not just like this
like prestige
person's gonna teach me this. It lifts you up into higher stratosphere of social circles, so where she can marry into a much higher family than she would have access to if she was not Shallan or Jasnah's ward. So it brings benefits, even though it seems like Jasnah would be a nightmare to fucking petition to try to become the ward.
It seems kind of funny. It reminds me of like, I studied under what's his name at Yale. Okay. Like you have this added prestige because you studied under Larry Summers at Harvard. Like, okay. I mean, I understand though, if you're at Yale, you're at Harvard, you're at these Ivy League schools, that gets you a foot in the door at certain law schools. Like, it's an in.
Yeah.
It's a given in, and people know that. So just by doing those things, you've basically led the, laid the ground floor, so to speak, to get there. But, you still got to be able to perform.
Yeah. And obviously Jasnah, make sure she could perform. She's not just taking her on for no reason. But she goes and she leaves, and she doesn't know what to do. She's like, the only other option for her and her brothers was to run, to abandon the family estates in Yakoved and seek asylum. But where their old allies her father hadn't alienated, so they got no options. She's thinking like, our only option is to run, but even there, like, we can't even fucking find a place where we can seek asylum. So they're screwed with her failing. And so that's kind of her mindset when she goes and she just kind of sits down and stews. And she's like, there was the matter of a strange collection of maps they'd found in his study. What did they mean? He'd rarely spoken of his plans to his children. Even her father's advisors knew very little. Helleron, her eldest brother, had known more, but he had vanished over a year ago, and her father had proclaimed him dead. So those are all things we learn more about, the strange collection of maps they found in his study. What did they mean? He rarely spoken of his plans to his children. And then about Helleron, we learn all that stuff you'll learn as we get further in the books.
No, I was wondering about that.
Yeah, but as always, thinking of her father made her feel ill, and the pain started to constrict her chest. She raised her free hand to her head, suddenly overwhelmed by the weight of the House Delar's situation, her part in it, and the secret she now carried, hidden 10 heartbeats away. "Ho, young miss," a voice called. She turned, shocked to see Yalb standing there. But obviously the hidden 10 heartbeats away is another fucking big clue as far as the Silver Sword. Because, they talk about, like, it takes 10 heartbeats to call a Shardblade. Mention repeatedly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. I didn't catch that when I read it just now, but yeah, that's interesting.
So she's clearly got a fucking Shardblade.
Well, and yeah, we just reviewed that part there where what's his face has a torn jacket. Her father's dead, and she's holding a Shardblade, basically. Yeah. They didn't say Shardblade, but they insinuated.
Yeah, a sword that could cut through stone like water or something like that. Yeah.
So she ends up with a Soulcaster and a Shardblade. She's a fucking force to be reckoned with, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, she's there's obviously a big mystery surrounding what the fuck's up with her and what happened to her family.
And she can tag. She's probably out there just doing graffiti everywhere at night when no
Yeah.
one's watching.
Yeah, and there's no one can do shit about it. Like, run up on her. She can fucking slice him in half or turn him into dust.
Yeah. Burn him alive.
But yeah, and then so she asks, why is he there? And then he lets her know he's been playing cards with the officers, and I like
it sounded more like dice because he picked. I only say that because he picks the. It reminded me of that because he picks the chips off the floor.
Well, that's the money. The chips are the money.
I understand that, but I only say that because when you play cards, you're sitting. The fact that they're on the ground almost feels like a dice game, but it doesn't matter.
Whatever.
We don't know exactly what the game is. They're gambling.
Yeah. And so, he grabs the 80 chips off these fellows. It seems like it would be hard to cheat at dice unless you had rigged dice, and it's probably not his dice. So that's why I say it would probably cards, but yeah. So and then like he wins money off her, and I like Shallan's like, I can't believe you're gambling. He's like, dude, I just wanted to gamble. She's like, you were cheating? It's like, yeah, of course. He's like, that was the actual game. They knew I was cheating.
I love that.
They were trying to figure out how I was cheating, and I was trying to make sure that they didn't figure it out.
There's a couple things there that I thought were really interesting. First, it's more fun. It's fun to win against lawmen because he's ripping off people that he should not be able to rip off. But she clutches her pearls where it's like, you shouldn't gamble. You shouldn't try to guess the future, which I thought was kind of funny the way that she said it like that. Like, that's sacrilege.
That is, and their religion is sacrilegious. Guessing the future and making
prognostications.
Prognostications.
That's kind of interesting. That's kind of an interesting. Actually, I like.
It adds
I like that
to,
perception because
it adds to what Dalinar is his dreams, and these when the high storms come and he has these visions, and he's making predictions off of that, and preparations off of that, and that's part of what makes it scandalous is that it's sacrilegious to try to make guesses about the future.
It's also kind of interesting to consider as a concept, just conceptually, the idea that the future is in itself pure, because the future is a blank slate. You know what I mean?
It's not so much that they're like, that's not why. It comes up later. You find out why the religion would be so anti-guessing the future. You find that out later. I mean, it makes sense. It's not so much it's based off more of an event than rather just like
I get it.
Some fundamental fucking
I can understand that, but I still just like it conceptually because just to sort of figure and throw that out there is an interesting concept to thrust upon a culture. But yeah, then that was the part you mentioned also that I thought was really great is the added element of they knew I was cheating. The point was to try to catch me.
Yeah.
Once they catch me, the game's fucking over, and then he's kind of, now he's stuck in a pickle, but she showed up at the right time is basically what it sounded like. Yeah.
He's like, I think I might not have managed to walk away with my skin if you hadn't arrived. That didn't seem to worry him much. But
yeah,
I also like when she's like, I'm disappointed in you. This is not proper behavior. It's like, it is if you're a sailor, young miss.
Yeah.
It's like, speak for yourself, little lady.
Yeah, this isn't, I'm not you.
Yeah.
I don't have the same hang-ups that you have.
Yeah, keep
People
that
don't
fucking...
look at me the same way you do.
Look at my left hand. Fucking free as a bird. I can use all 10 of my digits. Keep your little fucking kitten and fucking mind your own business. But yeah, and then so they start walking around, and he's like, and your princess, and Shallan grimace, the meeting was unproductive. She didn't take you? What's wrong with her? chronic competence, I should guess. She's been so successful in life that she has unrealistic expectations of other. Which is a great line.
Yeah, that's great. I love
And then
chronic competence.
And then Yalb frowned, guiding Shallan around a group of revelers stumbling drunkenly up the roadway. And she comments that she was, wasn't it a little early for that sort of thing. So that, that is a clear example of the flip cup going on in the world. And anybody who is doubting that and just thinking we're just talking out our ass and just making stuff up, no, there is clear evidence right there that there's people walking around drunk. Shallan just hasn't, became aware of how integral the flip cup is to their industry, and and the crack cocaine too.
She just calls them
good,
revelers.
good, sweet crack cocaine.
But reveler is a flip cup individual. They're day drinking.
Yeah, they're day drinking. The reason they can day drink and they can go all night, because she talks about like how's everybody up all night and stuff like that, and like the city never sleeps. It's because they're drinking all day, but then they're crack cocaining it up to fucking
Jesus
get keep it going, keep the party going.
Okay.
Hey,
all right. Well,
that would do it.
It's in the subtext apparently.
Yeah. And then so you'd make an ideal ward, he continued. Genteel, pretty, refined, and such. Don't much like your opinion on gambling, but that's to be expected. Wouldn't be right for a proper woman to not scold a fellow for gambling. Be like the sun refusing to rise, or seed turning white, or Jasnah Kholin smiling. Exactly. Anyway, you're perfect. It's kind of you to say. Well, it's true, he said, putting hands on hips, stopping. So that's it? You're going to give up? And he tells her, the third time's the charm, basically, is what he says. Mm-hmm. He's like, try a third time. Shallan shivered to consider Jasnah's wrath if Shallan bothered her yet again. She'd surely withdraw the offer to come study with her in the future, but Shallan would never take that offer. It was like a glass sphere with no gemstone at the center. Pretty, but worthless. And so she thinks like, okay, I'll go get these books, and I'll start studying, and I'll approach her before she takes off. But yeah, she goes, has y'all find a merchant for her.
Well, what I thought was interesting is that I need a book merchant, and he raises an eyebrow at her. Well, earlier, in the same page, his eyebrows are drooping along the sides of his face. Mm-hmm. So because he's got those sweet-ass Thalen eyebrows, right? Yeah. So they're super long and everything. So how do you raise... Is he just raising it like people in our world would raise their eyebrow, or is he literally picking it up and
yeah, he's definitely picking his eyebrow up and lifting it. No, that would be lifting his eyebrow. This is raising an eyebrow. It's just like what we can do. They also have the ability to lift their eyebrows though, which is bring it to a whole nother level.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so he goes and he finds her a bookstore, and I like that he goes and gets the Thalen bookstore. It's like, hey, they're the best. Yeah. It's like, yeah, I'm sure they are. And I like, we talked about like the glyphs on the shape of the book. So illiterate servants who might be sent to shop had the ability to recognize them. But such a stupid system. Like you got your errand boys would be a pain in the ass. Like you would have their inability to read is very limiting. You'd have to have pictures of everything everywhere.
Well, in the bookstore itself and their lack of selection also shows what we talked about earlier, that books seem pretty freaking rare. This is a bookstore.
Yeah.
This is their purpose, and they have a handful of books.
It's in Kharbranth too, where, there's a big ass library right next door.
Yeah. But
so, going to the bookstore and buying books when you got the world's like biggest library, it's probably going to hurt the sales. But yeah, so she goes in there, and I like, A woman stood behind a counter at the back of the room. In Vorin Kingdom, she'd likely be of the first or second non. Thalans had their own system of ranks. At least they weren't completely pagan. They respected eye color, and the woman wore a glove on her safe hand. I like
That's
that.
what you were talking about.
Yeah, I like that aspect of the, shows her religious side, but the idea that it's pagan to not respect eye color or to cover up that sweet, sweet left hand.
Their prejudices are hilarious.
She's got some banging bangs, eyebrow bangs.
So they're all
she's
curled
got them
up.
curled up. She's got like the Orthodox Jewish instead of the
eyebrows.
Sideburns. She's got the Orthodox Jewish eyebrows. It's a fucking banging look.
And her dude has him comb back behind the ears. So he's got the more conservative look to offset her curled eyebrow look.
Yeah, they all.
What about Jerry curl? What about a Jerry curl eyebrow, where it's just all like drippy?
Sounds gross.
Or like super curled, like super duper curled. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you could do with super long eyebrows, I guess. But I'd probably trim them. I think that's the look I would go for. Is
Keep
the
them trimmed?
the high fade.
High and tight.
Yeah, give me the high and tight eyebrows. But
so we do get more of the oddities of their culture, where their relationship is she does the reading, he does the he does the
he handles the money,
the money. This guy is one hell of a salesman.
Yeah, he sounds like
son of a bitch.
Fucking like condescending and like
the entire time.
What is hilarious is he's condescending to her when he's the one that doesn't read in this society. And he's like, oh, look at this little girl. You probably want a little frivolous book. It's like, who the fuck else? There's no men coming in to read these books. So why would you assume all the girls, like, the only people who would be reading these books would be girls?
Yeah.
So why are you assuming, like, this girl's coming in for frivolous shit? It doesn't even make sense. It's like, why do you have these books if women don't buy them? Men clearly aren't buying them. So why do you even have these other fucking books?
If I remember right,
they only want the fucking salacious shit.
If I remember right, he even like doubles down on it. But I think a big part of what I got from this dude is one, he's kind of just being a dick, but then also he's kind of selling what he has, because like, oh well, we sell these. It's kind of like, I remember going to a certain car dealership and telling the guy what we're looking for, like these small things we also would like, and then he's like, "Wow, who needs that? I just fucking said I want that. Yeah. I did. The guy here that's picking out a car and has money. You fucking moron! Like, are we gonna do this? We're gonna do this multiple times?" Because it happened like a couple times with one dude where I was like, "You say what I want, doesn't matter. One more time, I'm leaving, dude. Like, this is stupid. You're not listening to what I'm saying. Stop trying to sell me what you fucking have. This is what I want. I'll just go somewhere else. I don't give a fuck."
Went one time buying a bed. Like, I went in with like cash. I had a shit ton of cash in my pocket, and I was like, I'm buying a bed today. I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna buy it, and then I'm gonna leave. And I go in. The first guy I talked to is like giving me a fucking hard time. Like, I was asking him how much something was, and he was like, it's a little fucking, that's pretty expensive. I was like, okay, are you going to tell me what the price is? And he's like, it's one of the more. I was like, okay. And so I just went to another guy, and I was like, hey, how much is this bed? And he tells me, and I was like, okay, I want to get it. Can I get it? He's like, yeah. And then I was like 5 minutes. It was like, you just like, you could have just told me the price, and 5 minutes later, you would have had all that commission. It's like, instead, you're fucking trying to talk me out of a sale.
Scared of the price. Yeah. That guy has a shitty bed. He has a bed that costs probably 1/10 of what that bed costs. Or he's never bought one.
Let me show you.
One of those two things are happening.
Let me show you that bed with the nails sticking out of it. That seems more like your style. It's like, go fuck yourself, dude. But
that person should not be in that position.
No, that's just terrible salesman.
That's horrible. Horrible.
Yeah, you don't try to talk someone out of a sale before it's even started. Yeah, it's just yeah, especially
Well, I
in
do.
sales, like you're just like, this dude, you suck, dude. You're terrible at this. You're not gonna make any money.
One of the things I do, it did make me appreciate Shallan, although she can be aggravating a little bit with how pedantic she is. But I like that she makes him squirm because he's a douche.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, and he's also a terrible salesperson. So that also, and she throws it right in his face. She at first kind of plays a little game with him, but then she literally throws it like right in his face. What his own words.
Yeah, and I like the I can see you're a woman of discriminating taste. I am, Shallan said, voice firm through though her heart fluttered. Was she destined to get into an argument with everyone she met? I do like my meals prepared very carefully, as my palate is quite delicate. Pardon, I meant that you have discriminating taste in books. I've never eaten one, actually. Brightness, I believe you are having sport with me. Not yet, I'm not. I haven't even really begun. Now, she said. You were right to compare the mind and the stomach. But too many of us, she said, take great pains with what we ingest through our mouths, and far less with what we partake through our eyes and ears. Wouldn't you say? Discriminating, she said, testing the word. I'm not certain I agree with your choice of words. To discriminate is to maintain prejudice against, to be exclusive. Can a person afford to be exclusive with what they ingest, whether we speak of food or of thought? I think they must, the merchant said. Isn't that what you just said? I said we should take thought for what we read or eat, not that we should be exclusive. Tell me, what do you think would happen to a person who only ate sweets? I know well, the man said. I have a sister-in-law who periodically upsets her stomach by doing that. See, she said, too discriminating. The body needs many different foods to remain healthy, and the mind needs many different ideas to remain sharp. Wouldn't you agree? And so if I were to read only those silly romances you presume that my ambition can handle, my mind would grow sick as surely as your sister-in-law's stomach. Yes, I should think that the metaphor is a solid one. You are quite clever, Master Artemin. His smile returned. So yeah, she fucking blows up his fucking spot. And then
Yeah.
Well, he finally is like, all right, I'm going to go help my wife.
Yeah, I was going to say, then she kind of, in the next part where she's like, being talked down to upsets both the mind and the stomach. So nice of you to give a poignant object lesson to accompany your brilliant metaphor. Do you treat all your customers this way? Which is basically, I'd like to speak to the manager.
Yeah. Brightness, I believe you stray into sarcasm. Funny, I thought I'd run straight into it, screaming at the top of my lungs. He blushed and stood. I'll go help my wife. Yeah.
Let me get out of here.
Yeah. I would gladly let you speak to the manager right now. As long as you're not speaking to me.
I like the way Sanderson writes it. He's pretty good with Shallan. Again, she can be a little bit aggravating in terms of how much she's like focused on the language itself, which can be a little bit annoying. But yeah, like especially with this guy, I almost feel like in this sense, the use of this dude being a prick serves utility, because when she was doing this before with a guy that wasn't necessarily a complete prick, it kind of made Shallan look like a little bit of a I don't know.
Well, I don't mind it like when she's using it like as a weapon. It's more like when she's using it as a defense for, because she can't accept a compliment or,
well, that's what it was
those
with
kind
Yolg.
of things.
Yeah,
like I don't like it then. Like it's annoying. But like when she's having like a banner back and forth like with that Ardent,
mm-hmm.
They're like those kind of personality traits. I like. Or like here, where this guy's being a douche, and so she's just checking him, putting him in his place. But yeah, when someone's trying to be nice to you, and you're fucking constantly deflecting it because you can't fucking your personality, you're so broken inside that you can't take a compliment. It's like, oh god, it's fucking annoying. It's like I'm just trying to fucking say something nice to you, just giving you a compliment. Fucking just take it.
I was wondering though, and maybe I've just missed something, or we haven't got there yet. I don't want to go ahead too far, but when they're talking about when they bring out the volumes, and the one that she centers on, about the 5 Vorin kingdoms. She's like, there's 5? Like, so I don't know if that's going back before her, before her experience. Where I guess in her world there's probably 4. There used to be 5. Is that what we're looking at?
Correct. Yeah. So it would have to be that there were 5 back in the day, and they don't say which one it is. We likely know it's likely Mool, but it you're not anywhere close to where that name would mean anything to you, and so yeah, I mean that's likely the one it is. Mool's a place where it's kind of like their faith is considered like a splinter of Vorinism, and so that's likely the place that was the 5th kingdom. But it's not something that's super pertinent to the story. I mean, but yeah, it's a little fact she didn't know about, and it's obviously in that book, so it's information the world knows, if you've read the histories, but it's not pertinent information. But then, I like too that she brings up, that this Shaka daughter Hasweth, a philosopher from distant Shem, where people lived in mud and worshipped rocks, the man who'd killed Jasnah's father nearly 6 years before, prompting the war against the Parshendi and Natan, had been Shin, the assassin in white, they called him. I like that aspect because we're in his head, and so we see, a Shin man in his thought process, and he's very introspective, and he definitely has a philosophy, and he has morals and all these kind of things. So, like, and he sees the Alethi as barbaric, and they're barbarians walking on stone, and they're perverse and that kind of thing. And so, and then when she looks at them, she's like, these fucking mud people living in fucking huts and shit, like, have philosophy. And they both like view each other as, fucking barbaric. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's in many ways, that's how our world works. It's interesting dichotomy to play up.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be similar to like Native Americans and the settlers, like the technology advantages of the settlers versus the way of life of the Native Americans, where they both would have seen each other as fucking something's wrong with these people. They're barbaric, the things they do, but they both would have viewed each other in that way.
It's interesting reading that stuff because a lot of the Native Americans, their nips were definitely blown off by books.
Yeah.
Once they figured out what the books were, they're just like, holy fuck. Like,
yeah.
What is this? And then once wrapping their mind around like that written history, it was like, whoa. So that's why that would blow their mind so much. Is
it's a fucking game changer.
Their history was verbal, and that's why a lot of it doesn't fucking exist anymore. It's gone. It's gone off the earth forever. Which is unfortunate, but that's human nature. But that's also just your perspective as a culture and your perspective within your groups, and what you sort of have known up to that point. If it hasn't been brought up, this way of looking at the world in a bigger sense, or like having that historical record, then if it doesn't seem to have utility, then what's the use? Right?
Yeah.
Until you realize it and it's presented to you, then it's like, oh, okay, that's again big game changer.
Yeah, books are these guys in this world. They should definitely give them a shot, man. I think they would. I think they would like them more than they expect.
It's funny. Old douchey sales guy here talking about, well, I've had that one read to me, and I've had this one read to me.
Yeah.
It's so weird to hear.
And I like that she talks about him. She's like, he probably reads, but, he doesn't want to admit it to, that he doesn't want to let the public see him doing it. But he probably can read. And so, yeah. He's got to talk like that. But, I mean, the dude's running a bookstore. How ridiculous would it be if he can't fucking read?
I like also his excellent. For buying so many, I will give you a fair discount. Let us say 10 emerald broams. So the voluntary discount is never the real discount.
Yeah.
Everyone should always know that. This is a good example of it here. And then Yalb's performance is fucking great, man. It's so great. Like reading it through again, I was just like, yeah, I love this.
Yeah, and I mean, I like too that she is just immediately, she's like the salesman's dream, where she's like, well, I guess I can't get all of it. What can I get? Well, here's all the money I have. What can I get with that? Like, holy shit, you're gonna lose all your money. You just told him, like, here's all the money I have in my wallet. What can I buy with it?
And then he literally looks back at the books and goes, oh, I didn't realize this one's a first edition. Yeah, I was wrong. This one, you can only get this one book.
This one. You can only get one of these. Sorry.
All of a sudden the prices change.
Yeah. But yeah, then he comes back and, throws out another, or no, what's his face comes in and he's like, oh man, I'll give you such a deal if you come back to my store. He's like, I totally, we completely apologize. We're going to charge you too much. And it's like, don't buy from this guy, buy from us. And the kid, I love that. He's like, that guy's a piece of garbage. Don't trust him. And he's like, well, hold on. How much is he going to charge you? She's like, he was going to charge me 10 Brahms. And immediately he's like, fuck, I'll give it to you for 2.
Well,
I don't even think it was Brahms. It was like, what did he say? 2 what?
I think it was 10 emerald Brahms. Yeah, 10 emerald. Oh yeah, sorry. So the Yalb comes back with, what did he say? It's a very low number. Well,
he goes, 10 was just an opening figure. So
he has to come back. Well, that was just
he's like 10 emerald Brahms.
Like,
Shallan said, for those 7 books, Yalb laughed, you didn't even stand up and walk right out. You practically had my master's ears, and he'd offer you a better deal than that. Please, brightness, return. We're ready to. 10 was just an opening figure. I didn't expect her to take them. He looked at Shallan. Of course, 8. Yalb laughed again. I'm sure we have those same books, brightness. I bet my master will give it to you for 2. Yeah, so he goes from 10 to 2 Brahms. Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, then he ends up caving to her, and he gives it to her for 2 and 3 sapphire.
I love how Shallan, so he does say what one would expect, which is, surely you wouldn't patronize someone so crass as to send a servant into someone else's shop to steal his customers. Perhaps I would, Shallan said. At least he didn't insult my intelligence.
Yeah.
So she fucking hit him right back in the face. That was a great moment. I love
his wife glares at him.
Yeah, he gets even more red in the face, and he's like, 2 emeralds, 3 sapphires. That's as low as I can go. And then it's basically, that's where you get the vibe that it's basically like, he doesn't even care if he loses the deal at this point because it's so freaking cheap.
It's so great, too, because she doesn't even know what she's doing. Like, she's just no clue. In the moment. Like, Shallan hesitated, glancing at Yalb. He was caught up in his role, bowing and scraping. She caught his eye, and he shrugs, and so she's like, all right, I'll do it. And then
my favorite part of the whole thing is at the end, you find out Yalb doesn't know shit either.
No, he's just a straight hustler.
He just knows the streets, man.
He knows sales.
Yeah.
And so he fucking played it perfect. Yeah, she's like, how did you know a fair price for a book was? Fair price, he said, slinging the bag over his shoulder. For a book? I have no idea. I just figured he'd be trying to take you for as much as he could. That's why I asked around for who his biggest rival was, and came back to help get him to be more reasonable. It was that obvious I'd let myself be swindled? Yalb chuckled. Just a little. Anyway, conning men like him is almost as much fun as cheating guards. You probably could have gotten him down further by actually leaving with me, then coming back later to give him another chance. That sounds complicated. Merchants is like mercenaries, my gamer always said. Only difference is that merchants will take your head off, then pretend to be your friend all the time, all the same.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, again, another fair point of the douchey sales guy. That's just like, at the end is just like, oh yeah, we gave you a great deal, and then we'll keep calling you. Like, hey, you ready to do this again?
Yeah. But yeah, then
I do also like his lack of respect for books, where he's just like, by the way, this is all just wood.
Yeah,
There's marks on it. It's
it's
just wood
a
with
bunch
marks
of
on
wood. I'll get some driftwood, and I can make some funny marks on it. Would you pay me pure spears for that too?
It's pretty funny when people say that about works of art, but also think about that as a book.
It's a hilarious way to
technically-
describe books. That's just wood with fucking scratching on it.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at this book, it's literally just a bunch of pieces of paper with a bunch of scratches on it, with a bunch of pieces of ink and little pictures. But there's a whole story in here.
Yeah,
you can
Yeah.
read. They actually add up to something.
This
words
thing we're
alongside one
doing,
another.
this communication back and forth, the book does that with me. We have a conversation. I learn.
Yeah,
But and then she's like, staying up this late had been a rare privilege for her in her father's house, but these city people around them barely seemed to notice the late hour. What a strange place this city was. It's built out of crack cocaine. It's a crack cocaine city. They're gonna stay up late. Telling you people, it is hidden in the subtext.
So,
that's where we find these things. You guys doubt our what we say. You doubt us. You think we're just making jokes and being funny, but the proof is in the pudding. We proved it in this episode.
What you're basically saying is someone can just take a knife and hit the side of any wall or floor, take off a chunk, smoke it, and be high as hell. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Wow. It's completely built out of crack.
Yes.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So wild.
It's not like our world. It's a different world. So they have crack cocaine mountains.
Oh man.
But yeah, so Shallan goes back, and then she ends up, paying for a room, and then she gets in there, she sees Jasnah sat studying, heedless of the hour, her goblet filled to the brim with pure diamond bromes. They were the best for light, but less useful in soul casting, so weren't as valuable. And then, Jasnah, her thing is like, I'm going to read these books, and then before Jasnah takes off, I'm going to go make another stab at it. She's like, it's a shot in the dark, but, it's not going to work probably, but, it's my best chance.
It's funny because once she looks like through her possessions, she's like, that's exactly what you were going to do, right?
Yeah.
It's like you were going to do a quick cram over here, study as much as you can to impress me. And again, she's impressed. And she's also impressed by, like, literally she sees her books and she's like, why did you do these? It's like, well, I just do them because I like them. I want to. It's like I do it of my own accord. So it's like she's describing herself, and then she's looks like through her possessions as a consummate student. That's what Jasnah's looking for, it seems.
Yeah. And she comes up. She comes up and says, I'm never going to be rid of you, am I? A soft feminine voice asked. Shallan jumped up, nearly knocking over her books as she spun toward the doorway. Jasnah Glenn stood there, deep blue dress embroidered in silver, its silken sheen reflecting the light of Shallan's fears. The soulcaster was covered by a fingerless black glove to block the bright gemstones. So, like, this would be Kavoth's woman in this story, clearly. They both are all about them fingerless gloves. And if you haven't listened to our King Killer podcast, if you just are exclusively listening to this, make sure you go back through. There's a lot of clothing stuff that you're going to miss if you have not listened to those episodes. But yeah, Kavoth would be all about that fingerless glove.
The fingerless glove, he'd have her wearing toeless shoes, those toeless vibrams.
Toeless vibrams, sure. Yep. If she was wearing a cloak with toeless vibrams and that fingerless glove, dude, Kavoth would dumped in a second for her.
Jasnah's, she's quite interesting. That's for sure. She got some traits.
Yeah.
She'd be kind of a bitch, but,
And I like, she's like, you're very determined. That is good. And I know why you wish so desperately to be my ward. Shallan started. She knew? Your house has many enemies, Jasnah continued. Your father is reclusive. It will be difficult for you to marry well without a tactically sound alliance. Shallan relaxed, though she tried to keep it from showing. Let me see your satchel. And then she pours everything out. But I like that where Jasnah's like, I know what's going on here. It's because of this. And Shallan's like, oh, sure. Yeah, that's it. You got it. Nailed it.
Well, I like how initially she's like, wait, what? Like,
Yeah.
She knows?
Yeah.
Don't be fooled, kids. Kids that are listening, anytime someone says, I know what's going on here, they don't.
No.
Do not be fooled. They don't know. Just be calm. Have a straight face, and don't say anything. Never say anything. Let them tell you what they think is going on. Because they don't know.
If you're in high school and you and a friend get in trouble and they separate you and they tell you that your other friend already told, so you might as well admit what happened, they are lying. Your other friend didn't tell because it wouldn't be asking you. They wouldn't ask you to spill the beans. They would tell you what you did wrong.
They would already know.
Yeah.
They would already know. So why would you need to say it?
It's like, okay,
but
well, you tell me. You tell me what my friend said, word for word.
No, you need to tell me. That way you'll be in less trouble.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm comfortable with being in more trouble.
Well, here's the thing. Well, my response was always, well, if he told you, it's exactly what I said. So I already told you what happened.
Yeah.
If he told you anything different, he's lying. How about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, the power, the lack of power that happens in those moments is fantastic. But when you're a kid, initially it's enough to scare you, so you'll end up saying some shit you shouldn't say. But just don't crack under pressure. They don't know shit.
No, I'm not gonna. I would. Those kind of situations would not get me to rat someone out because it's like what's the worst it's gonna do? You're gonna suspend me so I get a fucking 2-3 day vacation?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You just stick to the story, man. If you didn't have a plan ahead of time, stop doing shit like that because you and your friend should have been better prepared than this.
You gotta talk. You gotta talk those things through with your friends. I will never rat you out. Don't rat me out. That's got to be day one if you're going to do anything that might get you in trouble.
Yeah, that should be established early on. And the friend that does rat you out, probably not your friend anymore.
And it's good preparation for the police when you get older. Again, keep your fucking mouth shut. Don't fucking talk. Bad idea. Yes.
Again, they have no idea what happened. They're going to tell you that they did, and they're going to say, oh, we got DNA. They don't have shit.
Yeah.
Or if they did, like you said, they would then bring it.
Yeah. But yeah, so she ends up deciding that she's going to let her come on. She's like, if that notebook is any indication, you pursue scholarship in your free time for its own sake. That is encouraging. It is perhaps the best argument you could make on your own behalf. Which I love she says that because it's like, yeah, you're the one that fucking didn't let her talk about her artwork.
Yeah.
You should have led with that argument. It's like, I tried to tell you about my art. You said, I don't fucking give a fuck about your art. Yeah, you should have led with it, though.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's so perfect, which I didn't think about it when I was making notes. But when you started to read it again, I was like, wait, that's exactly what she was trying to do.
Yeah.
And she's like, nope, enough.
No. Yeah.
Walking away like, no. Oh, you mean art? That doesn't mean anything to me.
You didn't tell me you were good at it.
Well, I was bringing it up as the thing I'm best at, and you just shat all over it as if it didn't matter at all.
You didn't explain it was going to blow my nips off.
Well, that was the thing that I was saying that also doesn't make sense for a historian. That's a pretty flawed historian who doesn't have respect for chronicling events, and history itself,
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
And then, Shallan sat, bemused, blinking tired eyes. She got out a sheet of paper and wrote a quick prayer of thanks, which she'd burn later. Then she hurriedly gathered her books and went looking for a servant to send to the wind pleasure for her trunk. It had been a very, very long day, but she'd won. The first step had been completed. Now her real task began. Like the way it's all set up for her little fucking robbery of Shallan and the way it goes through and how conflicted she gets over it and all those kind of things as it goes along. I like
it's great.
The arc.
The interesting thing about their story is like early on I was just kind of like in the first few chapters of the books, it's like you get drawn into Kaladin immediately because it's so extreme, his circumstances, And then with Zeth, you're just pulled into this world and the possibilities of the world. And with Shallan, it's kind of a slower burn where you're kind of like, all right, I'm not really 100% what's up with this woman, but okay. It works great. Their arc and the thoughtfulness of their characters, and how they play each other, and how the philosophy is weaved in. There's a lot of world building, obviously, and these 2 chapters it's huge, and it's great. It really builds stuff out in a really interesting way. Having Jasnah, what she stands for and who she is and how she stands aside from a lot of the world, says a lot about the world in itself.
Yeah, it's a cool arc. I look forward once you get through like at least the part 4, when you get more of the kind of the culmination of all these characters' arcs. Part 5 is more of just kind of wrapping up the book, but the part 4 is kind of the big fucking crescendo. And so they're all these arcs are good. There's good payoffs on this book. It's one of those books where even people who think it's slow in the beginning, because sometimes it can take you a while to settle into a book that's when the world is this strange. So I don't really think this is written like it doesn't feel like a slow burn to me. But I get why, if it's a new world and it's unfamiliar and it's strange and shit, wow, that culture shock type of thing can make a book feel like a slow burn because it takes a while to settle into the world. I've definitely had that with strange worlds that I've read from different books. But this one, I didn't get that. But I do get why some people feel that way. But the way it builds into that 4th part, I mean, it's pretty large consensus of people agree, like the fucking book ends on a massive high note.
To say slow burn, I don't think that wouldn't speak to my experience, given the fact that like Bridge 4 and Kaladin's chapters
and
start
Zeth right off the beginning.
I mean that's one of those things where when one of the people we were talking to was just like, meh, they were kind of iffy about it before I had started reading. And then I read Zeth's chapter. I'm like, what the hell they're talking about? I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
And then starting to read about Kaladin, I was like, he's just a very interesting character from the get-go because he's a slave in a freaking a cart, basically eating porridge, hating his life, yet he's diagnosing other people's problems. Right, that's pretty interesting. This guy has a background. He's got like a moral code that shouldn't be a slave in a cart.
Yeah,
it's like kind of in a way it's like the Spartacus story, which is a tremendous story. I mean, that story can be done so many times over. Like Spartacus, Ben-Hur, I mean, his Gladiator. It's been done time and again. There's a reason it works every time. It's very compelling.
Yeah,
but it's great.
Yeah,
thus far.
So next week
it'll be funny when the crescendo that you're describing ends up, for me, just being an egg. He just lays an egg with nothing
huge
happens.
letdown. You're like, I'm not doing any more of these. I'm done with this series.
Wouldn't it be really interesting, like for some? Because I've read reviews on Amazon of books I really like, and you're like, dude, you're trying real hard to shit on a book you've never read before. Like where somebody's just like, yeah, nothing happens. What? Did you read it? So.
Yeah, I mean, you see how subjective everything is when you read like negative reviews about a book that you love. You're like, what? Like, I don't even. It's like we read 2 different fucking books.
Yeah. Well, some of the critiques I can understand where you're coming from. It's just like, man, we are really different people.
Yeah.
If like that's your focal point, is being offended by that subject, man, we are really different people. Which, granted. But I was just saying, to be stubborn to the effect of, like, so far we both like this book a lot. If I get to the end and I'm just like, I don't like that nothing happens, it'd be like, dude, you're just being a dick. Like, what are you talking about?
I've seen people like do, like, if you don't like, Name of the Wind or Wise Man's Fear, like whatever. But when people are like, he's not a good writer. He's a very childish writer or something along those lines, where it's like, it's ridiculous. What the fuck are you talking about? He's such a high level writer. Like that's to the fucking nth degree as far as like just writing chops. Fucking, you might not like his book, but that's like saying like Michael Jordan's not good at basketball because you don't like him. It's like, no, he's
Yeah,
clearly
that's
fucking really good at basketball.
That's kind of what I was driving at, is these absurd critiques that have, like, it's either intentional, you're just intentionally wanting to put a 1-star review up and having justification where you didn't read the book.
Yeah, there's a difference between like hating, like I can even read, like there's, when I read some of Sanderson's earlier stuff, his writing skill is not the same. It's not, he gets a lot better as he progressed in his career, which everybody does. But
should.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, some dudes, like, I mean, Rothfuss's first book was Name of the Wind. Like, he came out like a fucking rocket, but he also spent like 15 fucking years writing that book. But Sanderson, it's like I can critique some of the writing and although the dialogue a lot of times. I don't like the dialogue's clunky or the characters are a little less dynamic than they are in this series or like the Mistborn series, but I can still see that, like, okay, this guy's a good writer. It's just not his fucking best stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I started with something where he was way better, and so the flaws are going to stand out a little bit more in the previous work, but I can still see how he got to the level he's currently at. I could still see it there. Like, it's like, okay, I see the bones, where he's just needed to tighten things up, needed to improve the dialogue, the character development, that kind of stuff, tightens those things up, and that's where you get Stormlight.
That's kind of for me. Well, so when you describe something like that, it's like you already have an expectation reading somebody's earlier work after you've read their later work.
Yeah.
You can't avoid it. There's no getting around it.
Yeah.
And I've had that with some writers, but in certain circumstances, you need to be able to just like read it for what it is. And if the story works, it works. But you're not going to be able to not compare it to someone's later work if it's the same author.
Yeah.
The first time you read any author's work, that's the basis of your experience, is that book, that novel, whatever it is, that short story.
Well, it's stuff like if you start with someone's best work and then you read their other stuff, because no matter what you read of theirs, you're going to compare it to other stuff you're familiar with from them, but or compare it to other. Yeah, I mean, if you start with like something phenomenal, that's like one of the bad aspects of like getting into fantasy is you probably don't want to start with like A Song of Ice and Fire and Name of the Wind and the top tier books that everybody recommends, because then when you go and read the other stuff, then you're like, this is not as good as that. And it's like, yeah, but I mean, like, that's like when people are like, I thought Storm of Swords is way better than A Feast for Crows. It's like, yeah, but A Storm of Swords is like that's my favorite book of all time. Like, obviously all this shit's subjective, but like to a lot of people, that's their favorite book they've ever read. So yes, no matter what he does after that, it's likely not going to be as good as the greatest book you've ever read. Like, so you want to fucking readjust your expectations a little bit and not judge things off of, this isn't better than the best thing I've ever read in my life.
Yeah. There's a real problem there and people just can't seem to avoid it in certain circumstances where they have to compare things to one another. Yeah. Where it's like, you don't compare, like I wouldn't compare Haruki Murakami to these books. They're nothing alike. No. But that kind of came to mind because the first of his books I read was, I didn't know it. Somebody mentioned it. I read it. And I was like, holy shit, just completely changed my perspective on literature. And then when I went to the bookstore, they're like, which one have you read? And they're like, well, that's his masterpiece. And I was like, oh shit, well, where do I go from here? Yeah. But luckily, he's still writing. So, I've been able to read books since, and some of his earlier stuff's great too. It's very different too. But yeah, I mean, that's like one of my favorite authors ever. But
compare Sopranos to fucking All in the Family.
Yeah, they're both families.
Yeah.
Right? They're both family stories.
Yeah. Same thing. They're both
not really fair to
both TV shows.
It's not really fair to compare Sopranos to any series.
That's what I'm saying.
There have been a series that's been like it.
Yeah, like got to compare it to like Breaking Bad or something, But
even that, it's like a different genre.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd almost be fair to compare it to like Goodfellas, but one's a series, one's a movie.
But yeah, so let's see what we got next week. We got Kaladin. So we got 3 Kaladin chapters to finish up part 1, all the way up to ending with him nearly committing suicide, and then we will probably get into at least some of the interlude chapters, if not all of them, because most of the next 3 chapters aren't very long, and then the interludes are all short too.
Right on.
But yeah, so we'll fucking pump that out here in 2 weeks.
Good shit.
So shove that down your fucking face.
Down my face?
Yeah. Shove it
Do
down.
I have to? Or is that for the audience?
It's for everybody.
Oh, okay.
But all right, fucking peace out, chumps.
Right on. Chumps? Fuck.